Bemidbar. God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert, in the communion tent on the first day of the second month in the second year of the Exodus, saying, Take a census of the entire Israelite community. Do it by families following the paternal line according to the names of each male taken individually. You and Aaron shall take a tally of them by the divisions, counting every male over 20-year-old who is fit for service. Alongside you there shall be one man from each tribe, and he shall be the head of his paternal line. These are the names of the men who will assist you. For Reuben, Elizur, son of Shedeur. For Simeon, Shelumiel, son of Zuri Shaddai. For Judah, Nachshon, son of Aminadab. For Issachar, Nethanel, son of Zuar. For Zebulun, Eliab, son of Chelon. For Joseph's sons, for Ephraim, Elishama son of Ammihud. For Manasseh, Gamliel son of Padadzur. For Benjamin, Avidan son of Gidoni. For Dan, Achiezer son of Ammishaddai. For Asher, Pagiel son of Akran. For Gad, Eliasaph son of Deuel. For Naphtali, Achira son of Enan. These are the communal representatives, the princes of the paternal tribes and leaders of Israel's thousands. Moses and Aaron took aside these men whose names had been designated. They assembled the entire community on the first day of the second month, and all the people were registered by ancestry according to their paternal families. All those over 20 years old were counted individually by name. Moses thus took a tally of the Israelites in the Sinai desert as God had commanded him. This was the result for the descendants of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, according to the records of their paternal families. This was the number of individual names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Reuben was 46,500. For the descendants of Simeon, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of individual names in the tally for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Simeon was 59,300. For the descendants of Gad, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Gad was 45,650. For the descendants of Judah, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Judah was 74,600. For the descendants of Issachar, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Issachar was 54,400. For the descendants of Zebulun, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Zebulun was 57,400. Among the sons of Joseph, for the descendants of Ephraim, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Ephraim was 40,500. For the descendants of Manasseh, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Manasseh was 32,200. For the descendants of Benjamin, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Benjamin was 35,400. For the descendants of Dan, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Dan was 62,700. For the descendants of Asher, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Asher was 41,500. The descendants of Naphtali, according to the records of the paternal families, this was the number of names for males over 20 years old, all fit for service. The tally for the tribe of Naphtali was 53,400. These are the tallies made by Moses, Aaron, and the 12 men who were princes of Israel, one from each paternal family. The tally of Israelites according to their paternal families included those over 20 years old, all fit for service. The entire tally was 6,03,550. However, the men who were Levites according to their father's tribe were not tallied together with the other Israelites. God spoke to Moses, saying, Do not take a tally or census of the Levites together with the other Israelites. Put the Levites in charge of the tabernacle of testimony. All its furniture and everything pertaining to it, they shall carry the tabernacle and all its furniture, and they will serve in it. They shall therefore camp around the tabernacle. When the tabernacle is moved, the Levites shall take it down, and when it is to remain in one place, they shall set it up. Any non-Levite who participates shall die. When the Israelites camp, each individual shall be in his own camp, each one designated by the banner for its division. The Levites, however, shall camp around the tabernacle of testimony, so that there will not be any divine anger directed against the Israelites. It shall be the Levites who safeguard the trust of the tabernacle of testimony. The Israelites did all that God commanded Moses, and they did it exactly. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, The Israelites shall camp with each person near the banner having his paternal family's insignia. They shall camp at a specified distance around the communion tent. Camping to the east, the direction of sunrise, shall be the divisions under the banner of Judah. The leader of Judah's descendants was Nathan, son of Aminadab. The tally of his division was 74,600. Camping near him shall be the tribe of Issachar, and the leader of Issachar's descendants was Nathanael, son of Zuar. The tally of his division was 54,400. With them shall be the tribe of Zebulun, and the leader of Zebulun's descendants was Eliab, son of Chelon. The tally of his division was 57,400. The entire tally for the divisions in Judah's camp was thus 1,86,400. On the march they shall go first. The division under the banner of Reuben's camp shall be to the south. The leader of Reuben's descendants was Elizur, son of Shedaiur. The tally of his division was 46,500. Camping near him shall be the tribe of Simeon, and the leader of Simeon's descendants was Shelumiel, son of Zuri Shaddai. The tally of his division was 59,300. With them shall be the tribe of Gad, and the leader of Gad's descendants was Eliasaph, son of Reuel. The count of his division was 45,650. The entire tally for the divisions in Reuben's camp was thus 1,51,450. On the march they shall go second. On the march the communion tent and the camp of the Levites shall then proceed. They shall be in the middle of the other camps. The people shall travel in the same manner as the camp. Each person shall be in his place according to each one's banner. The divisions under the banner of Ephraim's camp shall be to the west. The leader of Ephraim's descendants was Elishama, son of Ammihud. The tally for his division was 40,500. Near him shall be the tribe of Manasseh, and the leader of Manasseh's descendants was Gamaliel, son of Padazur. The tally for his division was 32,200. With them shall be the tribe of Benjamin, and the leader of Benjamin's descendants was Avidan, son of Gidoni. The tally for his division was 35,400. The entire count for the divisions of Ephraim's camp was thus 1,08,100. On the march they shall go third. The divisions under the banner of Dan's camp shall be to the north. The leader of Dan's descendants was Achiezer, son of Ammishaddai. The tally of his division was 62,700. Camping near him shall be the tribe of Asher, and the leader of Asher's descendants was Pagiel, son of Akron. The tally for his division was 41,500. With them shall be the tribe of Naphtali, and the leader of Naphtali's descendants was Achira, son of Enan. The tally for his division was 53,400. The entire tally for Dan's camp was thus 1,57,600. On the march they shall be the last of the banners. These then are the tallies of the Israelites according to the paternal families. The tally for all the camps in all divisions was 6,03,500. The Levites were not registered among the rest of the Israelites as God had commanded Moses. The Israelites did all that God had commanded Moses. They camped under the banners in the prescribed manner, and each person travelled in a similar manner with his family according to his paternal line. These are the chronicles of Aaron and Moses on the day that God spoke to Moses at Mount Sinai. These are the names of Aaron's sons, Nadab the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. These are the names of Aaron's sons who were the anointed priests installed to serve. Nadab and Abihu died before God when they offered unauthorized fire to God in the Sinai desert. They had no children. Thus only Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests during their father Aaron's lifetime. God spoke to Moses saying, "Bring forth the tribe of Levi and present it to Aaron the priest, so that its members shall serve him. They shall safeguard my trust and the trust of the entire community, involving the communion tent performing any necessary service in the tabernacle. They shall guard all the communion tent's furniture along with everything else that the Israelites have entrusted for the tabernacle's service. Give special instructions to Aaron and his descendants. They are his gift from the Israelites. Give special instruction to Aaron and his descendants that they safeguard the priesthood. Any non-priest who participates shall die." God spoke to Moses, saying, "I have separated the Levites from the other Israelites so that they may take the place of all the firstborn who initiate the warmth among the Israelites, and the Levites shall be mine. This is because every firstborn became mine on the day I killed all the firstborn in Egypt. I then sanctified to myself every firstborn in Israel, man and beast alike, and they shall remain mine. I am God." God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert and said, "Take a tally of the Levites, family by family, according to their paternal lines. Count every male over 1 month old." Moses numbered them at God's command as he had been instructed. By name, the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kehoth, and Merari. The sons of Gershon heading families were Livni and Shimi. The sons of Kehoth heading families were Amram, Yitzhar, Hebron, and Uziel. The sons of Merari heading families were Machli and Mushi. These are the Levite families according to their paternal lines. For Gershon there was the Livnite family and the Shemite family. They were the Gershonite families, numbering every male over 1 month old. Their tally was 7,500. The Gershonite family shall camp to the west toward the back of the tabernacle. Paternal leader of the Gershonites was Eliasaph son of Lael. The task of the descendants of Gershon involving the communion tent shall be the tabernacle tapestries, the over tent, its roof, the drapes at the communion tent entrance, the enclosures, hangings, the drape at the entrance of the enclosure surrounding the tabernacle and altar, and the ropes, as well as all the work involving these items. For Kehoth, there was the Amramite family, the Yizharite family, the Hebronite family, and the Uzzielite family. All these were the Kehothite families. The count of every male over 1 month old was 8,600. They were in charge of the sacred articles. The family of Kehoth's descendants shall camp to the south side of the tabernacle. Paternal leader of the Kehothite family is Elzaphan son of Uzziel. Their charge shall be the ark, the table, the menorah, the 2 altars, the sacred utensils. For all these, the partition drape, and all the work involving these items. The one in charge of the Levites leaders shall be Eleazar son of Aaron the priest. He shall be in charge of safeguarding the trust of the sacred articles. For Merari, there was the Machli family and the Mushi family. These were the families of Merari. Their tally, numbering every male over 1 month old, was 6,200. Paternal leader of the families of Merari was Zuriel, son of Avichail. They shall camp to the north side of the tabernacle. The appointed tasks of the descendants of Merari shall include the beams, crossbars, pillars, and bases of the tabernacle, all its utensils and the associated work, as well as the pillars, bases, stakes, and ropes of the surrounding enclosure. Camping to the east, in front of the tabernacle, shall be Moses and Aaron and his sons, those who keep charge of the sanctuary as a trust for the Israelites. Any unauthorized person who includes himself shall die. The entire tally of the Levites was made by Moses and Aaron by families. They were 22,000 males over 1 month old. God said to Moses, "Make a tally of the male firstborn among the Israelites who are over 1 month old, and take a census of their names. Take the Levites to me, I am God." in place of all the Israelite male firstborn. Also take the Levites' animals in place of the Israelites' firstborn animals. Moses made a tally of all the firstborn male Israelites as God had commanded him. According to the number of their names, the tally of all the firstborn over 1 month old was 22,273. God spoke to Moses, saying, Take the Levites in place of all the male firstborn Israelites. Also take the Levites' livestock in place of the Israelites' firstborn animals. The Levites shall become mine. I am God. Also take a redemption for the 273 individuals by which the firstborn outnumber the Levites. This shall be 5 shekels for each individual according to the sanctuary standard, where the shekel is 20 gerahs. Give the silver to Aaron and his sons as a redemption for the firstborn who are in excess of the Levites. Moses took the redemption money for those who were left over after the majority of firstborn had been redeemed by the Levites. The silver that he took from the firstborn Israelites considered of 1,365 sanctuary shekels. Moses gave the silver for those who were redeemed to Aaron and his sons at God's command. It was all done as God had commanded Moses. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Take a special census of the descendants of Kehath among the Levites. Take it by families following the paternal line. It shall include those from 30 to 50 years old, all who enter service to work in the communion tent. The following in the service of Kehath's descendants in the communion tent, it is the Holy of Holies. When the camp is about to travel, Aaron and his sons shall come and take down the partition drape, using it to cover the ark of testimony. They shall then place a cover of blue processed skins over it, and on top of that a cloth of pure sky blue wool. They shall then put its carrying poles in place. They shall spread a sky blue cloth over the inner table. Then they shall set in place on it the bread forms, incense bowls, half tubes, and covering side frames, so that the bread can remain on the table constantly. Over it all they shall place a crimson wool cloth and cover it with a case of blue processed skins. They shall then put its carrying poles in place. They shall take a cloth of sky blue wool and cover the menorah lamp along with its oil cups, wick, tongs, ash scoops, and the oil containers used for it. The menorah and all its utensils shall be placed in a case of blue processed skins and placed on a carrying frame. They shall spread a sky blue wool cloth on the golden altar and then cover it with a case of blue processed skins. They shall then set its carrying poles in place. They shall take the sanctuary's service utensils and place them on a sky blue wool cloth. They shall then be covered with a case of blue processed skins and placed on a carrying frame. They shall remove all the ashes from the sacrificial altar and place a dark red cloth over it. They shall place on it all the utensils that are used for its service, such as the fire pans, flesh pokers, scoops, and sacrificial basins. All the altar's utensils they shall then cover it all with a case of blue processed skins and set its carrying poles in place. Aaron and his sons shall thus finish covering the sacred furniture and all the sanctuary utensils so that the camp can begin its journey. Only after the priests are finished shall the Kehathites come to carry these items so that they not die when they touch the sacred objects. The above is what the Kehathites must carry for the communion tent. This shall be under the direction of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, along with the illuminating oil, the perfumed incense, the meal offering for the daily sacrifice, and the anointing oil. He shall also be in charge of the entire tabernacle and all its sacred furniture and utensils. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Do not cause the Kehathites to become extinct among the Levites. This is what you must do so that they survive and not die when they come into the Holy of Holies. Aaron and his sons shall first come and arrange each thing so that every Kehathite can perform his service carrying his load. The Kehathites will then not come and see the sacred furniture being packed, and they will not die. Now so, God spoke to Moses, saying, Also take a census of Gershon's descendants by families, following the paternal line. Take a tally of those from 30 to 50 years old, all who are fit for duty in the communion tent service. The Gershonite family shall serve by maintaining and carrying as follows. They shall carry the tabernacle, tapestries, the communion tent, the roof, the over roof of blue processed skins that is above it, the drape at the communion tent entrance. The enclosures, hangings, the drape at the entrance to the enclosure around the tabernacle and altar, the guy ropes, all their appropriate tools, and everything necessary for their maintenance. All the carrying and maintenance service of the Gershonites shall be under the supervision of Aaron and his sons. The Gershonites shall have fixed appointments for everything they carry. The above is the Gershonite family's service for the communion tent. Their duties shall be under the supervision of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. Take a tally of Merari's descendants by family following the paternal line. Take the tally of those from 30 to 50 years old, all who are fit for duty in the communion tent service. They shall be entrusted to carry and maintain the following items in the communion tent: the beams, crossbars, pillars, and bases of the tabernacle. The pillars of the surrounding enclosure, the bases, stakes, and guy ropes, all their tools, and all their maintenance equipment, these shall be appointed by name to carry all the articles with which they are entrusted. The above is the work comprising the entire service of Merari's descendants in the communion tent. It shall be under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. Moses, Aaron, and the communal leaders took a tally of the descendants of the Kehathites by family following the paternal line, and including everyone from 30 to 50 years old who was fit for duty in the communion tent's service. Their tally by families was 2,750. This was the complete tally of the Kehathite family for all who served in the communion tent as taken by Moses and Aaron. It was then as God had directed Moses. This was the tally of Gershon's descendants by families following the paternal line, and including everyone from 30 to 50 years old who was fit for duty in the communion tent service. Their tally by families following the paternal line was 2,630. This was the complete tally of all who served in the communion tent from the descendants of Gershon. The tally was taken by Moses and Aaron as God had directed. This was the tally of Merari's descendants by families following the paternal line, and including everyone from 30 to 50 years old who was fit for duty in the communion tent service. Their tally by families was 3,200. This was the complete tally of the families of Merari's descendants. The tally was taken by Moses and Aaron as God had directed Moses. This is the entire tally that Moses, Aaron, and the communal leaders took of the Levites. It was by families following the paternal line, including everyone from 30 to 50 years old who was fit for duty in the communion tent service. Their tally was 8,580. They were thus counted by Moses at God's bidding, each individual according to his service, what he would carry, and his appointed task. God had commanded Moses. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Instruct the Israelites to send out of the camp everyone who has a leprous mark or a male discharge, and all who are ritually defiled by the dead. Whether male or female, they must be sent out of the camp, so that they not defile the camp where I dwell among them." The Israelites did this, sending all such people out of the camp. The Israelites did exactly as God had told Moses. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak as follows to the Israelites: "If a man or woman sins against his fellow men, thus being untrue to God and becoming guilty of a crime, he must confess the sin that he has committed. He must then make restitution of the principal plus a 20% surcharge and give it to the victim of his crime. If there is no relative to whom the dishonest gain can be returned, it must be returned to God and given to the priest. This is in addition to the atonement ram through which the wrongdoer's sin is expiated. All the sacred offerings that the Israelites present as elevated gifts to the priest shall become his property. The sacred offerings of each individual remain his own property. When they are given to the priest, they become the priest's property." God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and say to them, "This is the law. If any man's wife is suspected of committing adultery and being false to her husband, a man may have lain with her carnally, keeping it hidden from her husband, and they may have acted secretly so that there could be no witness against the woman. The woman was not raped. This is a case where the man had previously expressed feelings of jealousy against his wife, and she then may have been defiled. However, he may have expressed such feelings of jealousy against his wife, and she may have not been defiled. The law is that the man must bring his wife to the priest. When he brings her, he must also bring a sacrifice for her consisting of 1/10 ephah of barley meal. He shall not pour oil on it, nor place frankincense on it, since it is a jealousy offering. It is a reminder offering to recall sin. The priest shall bring forth the woman and have her stand before God. The priest shall take sanctified water in a clay bowl. He shall also take some earth from the tabernacle floor and place it in the water. The priest shall stand the woman before God and uncover her hair. He shall place on her hands the reminder offering, the jealousy offering. In the priest's hand shall be the curse bearing bitter water. The priest shall administer an oath to the woman, saying to her, if a man has not lain with you, and you have not committed adultery, so as to be defiled to your husband, you shall be unharmed by this curse bearing bitter water. But if you have committed adultery against your husband and have become defiled, and if a man other than your husband has had intercourse with you, at this point the priest shall administer to the woman the part of the oath containing the curse. The priest shall say to the woman, in such a case God will make you into a curse and an oath among your people, causing your sexual organs to rupture and your belly to blow up. This curse-bearing water will enter your body, and it will cause your belly to blow up and your sexual organs to rupture. The woman shall respond, Amen, Amen. The priest shall then write these curses on a parchment and dissolve the writing in the bitter waters. He shall then make the woman drink the bitter curse-bearing waters, and the curse-bearing waters shall begin to take effect. The priest shall take the jealousy offering from the woman and wave the offering in the prescribed motions before God, bringing it near the altar. Thus, after he makes the woman drink the water, the priest shall scoop out the memorial portion of the meal offering and burn it on the altar. When the woman drinks the water, if she has been defiled and untrue to her husband, the curse-bearing water will enter her body to poison her, causing her belly to blow up and her sexual organs to rupture. The woman will be a curse among her people. However, if the woman is pure and has not been defiled to her husband, she will remain unharmed and will become pregnant. This is the entire law regarding jealousy for the case when a woman commits adultery and becomes unclean. Or when a man simply has a feeling of jealousy against his wife, he shall stand the woman before God, and the priest shall follow this entire procedure. The man will then be free of sin, but the woman will be punished if guilty. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and say to them, this is the law when a man or woman expresses a Nazirite vow to God. He must separate himself completely from wine and wine brandy. He may not even drink vinegar made from wine and wine brandy. He shall not drink any grape beverage, and he shall not eat any grapes or raisins. As long as he is a Nazirite, he may not eat anything coming from the grape, from its seeds to its skin. As long as he is under Nazirite oath, no cutting instrument shall touch the hair on his head until he completes his term as a Nazirite to God. The uncut hair that grows on his head is sacred. As long as he is a Nazirite to God, he may not have any contact with the dead. He may not ritually defile himself even when his father, mother, brother or sister dies, since his God's Nazirite crown is on his head. As long as he is a Nazirite, he is holy to God. If a person dies in his presence suddenly and renders his crowned head ritually unclean, then when he purifies himself on the 7th day, he must shave off the hair on his head. On the 8th day, he must bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young common doves to the priest to the communion tent entrance. The priest shall prepare one as a sin offering and one as a burnt offering to atone for his inadvertent defilement by the dead. On that day he shall re-sanctify his head. He shall then begin counting his Nazirite days anew to God, and he shall bring a yearling sheep as a guilt offering. The following is the law of what the Nazirite must do when the term of his Nazirite vow is complete, and of what he must bring to the communion tent entrance. The offering that he must present shall be 1 unblemished yearling male sheep for a burnt offering, 1 unblemished yearling female sheep for a sin offering, 1 unblemished ram for a peace offering. and a basket containing unleavened wheat loaves kneaded with oil and flat matzahs saturated with oil, along with the proper meal offerings and libations for the animal sacrifices. The priest shall come in before God and prepare the Nazirite sin offering and burnt offering. He shall then sacrifice the ram as a peace offering to God to go with the basket of unleavened bread. The priest shall also present the meal offering and libation. After the service at the communion tent entrance, the Nazirite shall shave off the crown of hair on his head. He shall take the hair from the Nazirite crown on his head and place it on the fire that is under the peace sacrifice. After the Nazirite has shaved, the priest shall take the cooked foreleg of the ram along with one unleavened loaf and one flat matzah and place them on the Nazirite's open hands. The priest shall wave them with the motions prescribed for a wave offering before God. These are sanctified to belong to the priest along with the animal's chest given as a wave offering and the hind leg given as an elevated gift. After all this, the Nazirite may drink wine. This is the entire law concerning the Nazirite who has a vow obligation to bring his Nazirite sacrifice to God. This is in addition to anything else that he may wish to present to fulfill his vow, which must be brought above and beyond what the law requires for his Nazirite vow. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, "This is how you must bless the Israelites. Say to them, may God bless you and keep watch over you. May God make his presence enlighten you and grant you grace. May God direct his providence toward you and grant you peace. The priest will thus link my name with the Israelites, and I will bless them." On the day that Moses finished erecting the tabernacle, he anointed it and sanctified it along with all its furniture. He also anointed the altar and all its utensils and thus sanctified them. The princes of Israel, who were the heads of the paternal lines, then came forward. They were the leaders of the tribes and the ones who had directed the census. The offering that they presented to God consisted of 6 covered wagons and 12 oxen. There was 1 wagon for each 2 princes and 1 ox for each one. They presented them in front of the tabernacle. God said to Moses, "Take the offering from them and let the wagons and oxen be used for the communion tent service. Give them to the Levites as appropriate for each family's work." Moses took the wagons and oxen and gave them to the Levites. He gave 2 wagons and 4 oxen to the descendants of Gershon as appropriate for their service. To the descendants of Merari he gave 4 wagons and 8 oxen. Both were under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. He did not give any wagons to the descendants of Kehoth. However, since they had responsibility for the most sacred articles which they had to carry on their shoulders. On the day that it was anointed, the princes presented their dedication offerings for the altar. The leaders placed their offerings before the altar. God said to Moses, "Let them present their offerings for the altar's dedication, 1 prince each day." The one to bring his offering on the first day was Nachshon, son of Aminadab of the tribe of Judah. His offering was as follows: 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with the best grade wheat meal kneaded with olive oil for a meal offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering. 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. This was the offering of Nachshon, son of Aminadab. On the second day, Nathanael, son of Zuar, prince of Issachar, brought his offering. The offering that he brought was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a meal offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. This was the offering of Nathanael, son of Zuar. On the third day, it was the leader of Zebulun's descendants, Eliab, son of Chelon. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a meal offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. This was the offering of Eliab son of Chelon. On the 4th day it was the leader of Reuben's descendants, Elizur son of Chedai-ur. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with meal kneaded with oil for a meal offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. This was the offering of Elizur son of Chedai-ur. On the 5th day it was the leader of Simeon's descendants, Shelumiel son of Zuri-Shaddai. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a meal offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for a peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. This was the offering of Shelumiel son of Zuri-Shaddai. On the 6th day it was the leader of Gad's descendants, Eliasaph son of Deuel. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a meal offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. That was the offering of Eliasaph son of Deuel. On the 7th day it was the leader of Ephraim's descendants, Elishama son of Ammihud. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a grain offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. That was the offering of Elishama son of Ammihud. On the 8th day it was the leader of Manasseh's descendants, Gamliel son of Pedahzur. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a grain offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense. 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. This was the offering of Gamliel son of Pedahzur. On the 9th day it was the leader of Benjamin's descendants, Abidan son of Gidoni. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat kneaded with oil for a grain offering. 1 incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. That was the offering of Abidan son of Gidoni. On the 10th day it was the leader of Dan's descendants, Achiezer son of Ammishaddai. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal for a grain offering. 1 gold incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. That was the offering of Achiezer son of Ammishaddai. On the 11th day it was the leader of Asher's descendants, Pagiel son of Achran. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a grain offering. 1 incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep. That was the offering of Pagiel son of Achran. On the 12th day it was the leader of Naphtali's descendants, Achira son of Enan. His offering was 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by the sanctuary standard, both filled with wheat meal kneaded with oil for a grain offering, 1 incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram and 1 yearling sheep for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering. And for the peace sacrifice, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats and 5 yearling sheep, that was the offering of Achira son of Anan. That was the dedication offering for the altar given by the princes of Israel on the day that it was anointed. They weighed 12 silver bowls, 12 silver sacrificial basins and 12 gold incense bowls. Since each bowl weighed 130 shekels and each sacrificial basin weighed 70, and all the silver in the utensils amounted to 2,400 sanctuary shekels. They weighed 12 gold incense bowls full of incense, each weighed in 10 sanctuary shekels. Therefore, all the gold in the incense bowls amounted to 120 shekels. The total of all the animals for burnt offerings was 12 oxen, 12 rams and 12 yearling sheep, along with their meal offerings. They were also 12 male goats for sin offerings. The total of all the animals for peace sacrifices was 24 bulls, 60 rams, 60 male goats and 60 yearling male sheep. That was a dedication offering for the altar after it was anointed. When Moses came into the communion tent to speak with God, he would hear the voice speaking to him from between the 2 cherubs on the ark cover over the ark of testimony. God thus spoke to him. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to Aaron and say to him, "When you light the lamps, the 7 lamps shall illuminate the menorah." Aaron did that, lighting the lamps to illuminate the menorah as God commanded Moses. The menorah was made of a single piece of beaten gold. Everything from its base to its blossom consisted of a single piece of beaten metal. The menorah was thus made exactly according to the vision that God showed Moses. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the Levites from among the Israelites and purify them. In order to purify them, you must sprinkle the water of the sin offering on them after they have shaved their entire bodies with a razor. They shall then immerse their bodies and their clothing, and they will be clean. They shall then take a young bull along with its grain offering consisting of the best grade wheat meal mixed with olive oil. You shall also present the second bull as a sin offering. Bring the Levites to the front of the communion tent and assemble the entire Israelite community. Present the Levites before God and have the Israelites lay their hands on the Levites. Aaron shall then designate the Levites as a wave offering to God from the Israelites, and the Levites shall become the ones to perform God's service. The Levites shall then lay their hands on the heads of the bulls, and you shall prepare 1 bull as a sin offering and 1 as a burnt offering to God to atone for the Levites. You shall stand the Levites before Aaron and his sons and designate them as a wave offering to God. In this manner you will separate the Levites from the other Israelites, and the Levites shall become mine. After you have purified them and designated them as a wave offering, the Levites shall come to perform the service in the communion tent. They are given to me from among the Israelites in place of the firstborn that initiate the womb of all the Israelites. I have taken them for myself. This is because all firstborn of the Israelites are mine, man and beast alike. I sanctified them for myself on the day that I killed all the firstborn in Egypt. I have now taken the Levites in place of all the firstborn Israelites. And I have given the Levites as a gift from the Israelites to Aaron and his descendants. They shall henceforth perform the service for the Israelites in the communion tent and atone for the Israelites. The Israelites will then not be subject to divine wrath when they approach the sanctuary. Moses, Aaron and the entire Israelite community did for the Levites all that God had instructed Moses regarding the Levites. The Israelites did it for them exactly. The Levites purified themselves through a sin offering, and they immersed their bodies and their clothing. Aaron designated them as a wave offering before God and made atonement for them to purify them. After that, the Levites came to perform the communion tent's service under the direction of Aaron and his sons. It was all done exactly as God had commanded Moses regarding the Levites. God spoke to Moses, saying, "This is the rule regarding the Levites. Beginning at the age of 25, they shall participate in the workforce engaged in the communion tent service. Then when they are 50 years old, they shall retire from the workforce and not serve anymore. During their duty period, they shall perform their appointed tasks, serving their brethren, the priests, in the communion tent. They shall not, however, participate in the divine service. This is what shall be done for the Levites as far as their appointed task are concerned. God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert in the second year of the exodus of Egypt, in the first month, saying, "The Israelites shall prepare the Passover offering at its proper time. The proper time for its preparation shall be the 14th day of this month in the afternoon. They must prepare it in accordance with all its decrees and laws." Moses spoke to the Israelites, telling them to prepare the Passover offering. They prepared the Passover offering in the Sinai desert on the 14th of the first month in the afternoon. The Israelites did exactly as God had instructed Moses. There were, however, some men who had come in contact with the dead and were therefore ritually unclean, so that they could not prepare the Passover offering on that day. During the course of that day, they approached Moses and Aaron. "We are ritually unclean as a result of contact with the dead," the men said to Moses. "But why should we lose out and not be able to present God's offering at the right time, along with the other Israelites?" "Wait here," replied Moses. "I will hear what orders God gives regarding your case." God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites, saying, "If any person is ritually unclean from contact with the dead, or is on a distant journey, whether among you now or in future generations, he shall still have the opportunity to prepare God's Passover offering. He shall prepare it on the afternoon on the 14th of the second month, and shall eat it with matzahs and bitter herbs. He shall not leave any of it over until morning, and not break any bone in it. He shall thus prepare it according to all the rules of the regular Passover offering. However, if a man is ritually clean and not on a distant journey, and he neglects to prepare the Passover offering, that person shall be cut off spiritually from his people. He shall bear his guilt for not offering God's sacrifice at the prescribed time. If a proselyte joins you, he must also prepare God's Passover offering, presenting it according to the rules and laws governing the Passover offering. There shall thus be a single law for all of you, the proselyte and native born alike. On the day that the tabernacle was erected, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of testimony. Then in the evening there was something that appeared to be like fire on the tabernacle, remaining there until morning. From then on it remained that way. There was a cloud covering it by day, and a fire like a partition by night. Whenever the cloud rose up from the tent, the Israelites would set out on the march. The Israelites would then camp in the place where the cloud rested. The Israelites would thus move on at God's bidding, and at God's bidding they would remain in one place for as long as the cloud remained on the tabernacle. If the cloud remained over the tabernacle for a long time, the Israelites would keep their trust in God and not travel on. In some cases, the cloud would remain on the tabernacle for just a few days, and they would similarly remain camped at God's word and then move on at God's word. There were even cases where the cloud remained only from evening to morning. When the cloud then rose in the morning, they would travel on. At other times it might be for a day and night, and they would then move on when the cloud rose. Thus, whether it was for 2 days, a month, or a full year, no matter how long the cloud remained at rest over the tabernacle, the Israelites would remain in one place and not move on. Then when the cloud rose, they would continue on their travels. They thus camped at God's word and moved on at God's word, keeping their trust in God. It was all done according to God's word through Moses. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Make yourself 2 silver trumpets, make them out of beaten metal. They shall be used by you to assemble the community and to make the camps break camp for their journeys. When both of the trumpets are sounded with a long note, the entire community shall assemble at the communion tent entrance. If a long note is sounded on only one of them, the princes who are leaders of thousands in Israel shall come together to you. When you sound a series of short notes, the camps to the east shall begin the march. Then when you sound a second series of short notes, the camps to the south shall set out. However, when the community is to be assembled, the trumpets shall be sounded with a long note and not with a series of short notes. The priests who are Aaron's descendants shall be the ones to sound the trumpets. This shall be an eternal law for future generations. When you go to war against an enemy who attacks you in your land, you shall sound the staccato on the trumpets. You will then be remembered before God your Lord and will be delivered from your enemies. When your days of rejoicing, on your festivals and on your new moon celebrations, you shall sound a note with the trumpets for your burnt offerings and your peace offerings. This shall be a remembrance before your God. I am God, your Lord. In the second year of this Exodus, on the 20th of the second month, the cloud rose from the tabernacle of testimony. The Israelites thus began their travels, moving on from the Sinai desert until the cloud came to rest in the Paran desert. This was the first journey at God's word through Moses. The division in the banner camp of Judah's descendants set out first. Heading that division was Nachshon, son of Aminadab. Heading the treble division of Issachar's descendants was Nathanael, son of Zuar. And heading the treble division of Zebulun's descendants was Eliab, son of Chelon. The tabernacle was then dismantled, and the descendants of Gershon and Merari, who carried the tabernacle, began the march. The divisions in the banner camp of Reuben then began to march. Heading that division was Eleazar, son of Shedaiur. Heading the treble division of Simeon's descendants was Shelumiel, son of Zuri Shaddai. And heading the treble division of Gad's descendants was Eliasaph, son of Deuel. The Kehathites, who carried the sacred furniture, then began their march. The tabernacle would be set before they arrived at the destination. The divisions in the banner camp of Ephraim's descendants then began the march. Heading their division was Elishama, son of Ammihud. Heading the treble division of Manasseh's descendants was Gamliel, son of Padazur. And heading the treble division of Benjamin's descendants was Avidan, son of Gidoni. Then the divisions in the banner camp of Dan's descendants, the last of the camps, began the march. Heading their division was Achiezer, son of Ammishaddai. Heading the treble division of Ashar's descendants was Pagiel, son of Akran. And heading the treble divisions of Naphtali's descendants was Achira, son of Enan. When they set out, this was the marching order of the Israelites according to their divisions. Moses said to his father-in-law, Chovev, son of Reuel, the Midianite, we are now on our way to the place that God promised to give us. Come with us and we will let you share the benefit of all the good things that God has promised Israel. I would rather not go, replied Chovev. I wish to return to my land and my birthplace. Do not abandon us, said Moses. After all, you are familiar with the places where we are going to camp in the desert, and you can be our guide. If you go with us, we will share with you whatever good God grants us. The Israelites marched the distance of a 3-day journey from God's mountain. The ark of God's covenant traveled 3 days ahead of them in order to find them a place to settle. When they began traveling from the camp by day, God's cloud remained over them. When the ark went forth, Moses said, Arise, O God, and scatter your enemies. Let your foes flee before you. When it came to rest, he said, Return, O God, to the myriads of Israel's thousands. The people began to complain, and it was evil in God's ears. When God heard it, he displayed his anger, and God's fire flared out, consuming the edge of the camp. The people cried out to Moses, and when Moses prayed to God, the fire dried down. He named the place burning Tab-era, for God's fire had burned them. The mixed multitude among the Israelites began to have strong cravings, and the Israelites once again began to weep. Who is going to give us some meat to eat? They demanded. We fondly remember the fish that we could eat in Egypt at no cost, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our spirits are dried up, with nothing but the manna before our eyes. The manna was like coriander seed with a pearl-like luster. The people could simply go for a stroll and gather it. They would then grind it in a hand mill or crush it in a mortar, cooking it in a pan and making it into cakes. It tasted like an oil wafer. At night, when the dew would fall on the camp, the manna would descend on it. Moses heard the people weeping with their families near the entrances of their tents. God became very angry, and Moses also considered it wrong. Why are you treating me so badly? Said Moses to God. Don't you like me anymore? Why do you place such a burden upon me? Was I the woman who was pregnant with this nation in my belly? Did I give birth to them? But you told me that I must carry them in my bosom, as a nurse carries an infant until we come to the land that you swore to their ancestors. Where can I get enough meat to give all these people? They are whining to me to give them some meat to eat. I cannot be responsible for this entire nation. It's too hard for me. If you are going to do this to me, just do me a favor and kill me. Don't let me see myself get into such a terrible predicament. God said to Moses, assemble 70 of Israel's elders, the ones you know to be the people's elders and leaders. Bring them to the communion tent and let them stand there with you. When I lower my essence and speak to you there, I will cause some of the spirit that you possess to emanate, and I will grant it to them. You will then not have to bear the responsibility all alone. Tell the people as follows, prepare yourselves for tomorrow, for you will then have meat to eat. You have been whining in God's ears, saying, who is going to give us some meat to eat? It was better for us in Egypt. Now God is going to give you meat, and you will have to eat it. You will eat it not for 1 day, not for 2 days, not for 5 days, not for 10 days, and not for 20 days. But for a full month you will eat it, until it is coming out of your nose and making your nose seated. This is because you rejected God. Now that He is among you and you whine before Him, why did we ever leave Egypt? Moses said, here I am among 600,000 men on foot alone, and you are saying that you will give them enough meat to eat for a full month? Even if all the cattle and sheep were slaughtered, could they be enough for them? If all the fish in the sea were caught, would it be sufficient? God said to Moses, has my power then become limited? You will now see whether or not my word will come true. Moses went out and told the people what God had said. He gathered 70 of the people's elders and stood them around the tent. God descended in the cloud and spoke to Moses. He caused the spirit that had been imparted on Moses to emanate, and he bestowed it upon the 70 elders. When the Spirit descended on them, they gained the gift of prophecy and did not lose it. 2 men remained in the camp, and the Spirit also rested on them. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the second was Medad. Although they were among those registered, they did not go out to the communion tent, but they spoke prophetically in the camp. A young man ran to tell Moses, Eldad and Medad are speaking prophecy in the camp. He announced. Joshua son of Nun, Moses' chosen attendant, spoke up. My lord Moses, he said, stop them. Are you jealous for my sake? Replied Moses, I only wish that all of God's people would have the gift of prophecy. Let God grant His Spirit to them all. Moses then returned to the camp along with the elders of Israel. God caused a wind to start blowing, sweeping quail up from the sea. They ran out of strength over the camp and were flying only 2 cubits above the ground for the distance of a day's journey in each direction. The people went about all that day, all night, and the entire next day and gathered quail. Even those who got the least had gathered 10 chomers. The people spread them out around the camp. The meat was still between their teeth. When the people began to die, God's anger was displayed against the people, and He struck them with an extremely severe plague. Moses named the plague Graves of Craving, Kivroth Hatava, since it was in that place where they buried the people who had these cravings. From Graves of Craving, the people traveled to Chadzorath. They were to remain in Chadzorath longer than planned. Miriam and Aaron began speaking against Moses because of the dark-skinned woman he had married. The woman that Moses had married was indeed dark-skinned. They then went on to say, is it to Moses exclusively that God speaks? Does not He also speak to us? God heard it. Moses, however, was very humble, more so than any man on the face of the earth. God suddenly said to Moses, Aaron and Miriam, all 3 of you go out to the communion tent. When the 3 of them went out, God descended in a pillar of cloud and stood at the tent's entrance. He summoned Aaron and Miriam, and both of them went forth. God said, listen carefully to my words. If someone among you experiences divine prophecy, then when I make myself known to him in a vision, I will speak to him in a dream. This is not true of my servant Moses, who is like a trusted servant throughout my house. With him I speak face to face, in a vision not containing allegory, so that he sees a true picture of God. How can you not be afraid to speak against my servant Moses? God displayed anger against them and departed. When the cloud left its place over the tent, Miriam was leprous, white like snow. When Aaron returned to Miriam and saw her leprous, anyone said to Moses, "Please, my Lord, do not hold a grudge against us for acting foolishly and sinning. Let Miriam not be like a stillborn child who comes from the womb with half its flesh rotted away." Moses cried out to God, "Oh God, please heal her." God said to Moses, "If a father had spit in her face, would she not have been embarrassed for 7 days? Let her remain quarantined for 7 days outside the camp, and then she can return home." For 7 days, Miriam remained quarantined outside the camp, and the people did not move on until Miriam was able to return home. The people then left Chazaroth, and they camped in the Paran desert. Shalak. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Send out men for yourselves to explore the Canaanite territory that I am about to give the Israelites. Send out one man for each patriarchal tribe. Each one shall be a person of high rank." Moses sent them from the Paran desert at God's bidding. All the men were leaders of the Israelites. Their names were as follows: from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua son of Zakur; from the tribe of Simeon, Shabdad son of Chori; from the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Yefuneh; from the tribe of Issachar, Yig'al son of Joseph; from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea son of Nun; from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti son of Raphu; from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel son of Sodi; from the tribe of Manasseh, from Joseph, Gadi son of Susi; from the tribe of Dan, Amiel son of Gemali; from the tribe of Asher, Sator son of Michael; from the tribe of Naphtali, Nashbi son of Vapsi; from the tribe of Gad, Geuel son of Maki. These are the names of the men Moses sent to explore the land. However, Moses gave Hoshea son of Nun the new name Joshua, Yehoshua. When Moses sent the man to explore the Canaanite territory, he said to them, "Head north to the Negev, and then continue north to the hill country. See what kind of land it is. Are the people who live there strong or weak, few or many? Is the inhabited area good or bad? Are the cities where they live open or fortified? Is the soil rich or weak? Does the land have trees or not? Make a special effort to bring back some of the land fruits." It was a season when the first grapes began to ripen. The men headed north and explored the land, from the Zin desert all the way of Rechov on the road to Chamath. On the way through the Negev, they came to Hebron, where they saw Achiman, Sheshai, and Talmi, descendants of the giant. Hebron had been built 7 years before Zon in Egypt. When they came to Cluster Valley, Nachal Eshkol, they cut a branch and a cluster of grapes which 2 men carried on a frame. Because of the grape cluster that the Israelites cut there, the place was named Cluster Valley. At the end of 40 days, they came back from exploring the land. When they arrived, they went directly to Moses, Aaron, and the entire Israelite community who were in the Paran desert near Kadesh. They brought the report to Moses, Aaron, and the entire community and showed them fruit from the land. They gave the following report: "We came to the land where you sent us, and it is indeed flowing with milk and honey, as you can see from its fruit. However, the people living in the land are aggressive, and the cities are large and well fortified. We also saw the giants' descendants there. Amalek lives in the Negev area. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hills, and the Canaanites live near the sea and on the banks of the Jordan." Caleb tried to quiet the people for Moses. "We must go forth and occupy the land," he said. "We can do it." "We cannot go forward against those people," replied the men who had gone with him. "They are too strong for us." They began to speak badly about the land that they had explored. They told the Israelites, "The land that we crossed to explore is a land that consumes its inhabitants. All the men we saw there were huge." While we were there, we saw the Titans. They were sons of the giant who descended from the original Titans. We felt like tiny grasshoppers, that's all that we were in their eyes. The entire community raised a hubbub and began to shout. That night, the people wept. All the Israelites complained to Moses and Aaron. The entire community was saying, "We wish we had died in Egypt. We should have died in this desert. Why is God bringing us to this land to die by the sword? Our wives and children will be captives. It would be best to go back to Egypt." The people started saying to one another, "Let's appoint a new leader and go back to Egypt." Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the whole assembled Israelite community. Among the men who had explored the land, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh tore their clothes in grief. They said to the whole Israelite community, "The land through which we passed in our explorations is a very, very good land. If God is satisfied with us and brings us to this land, He can give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. But don't rebel against God. Don't be afraid of the people in the land. They have lost their protection and shall be our prey. God is with us, so don't be afraid." The whole community was threatening to stone them to death when God's glory suddenly appeared at the communion tent before all the Israelites. God said to Moses, "How long shall this nation continue to provide me? How long will they not believe in me, despite all the miracles that I have done among them? I will kill them with a plague and annihilate them. Then I will make you into a greater, more powerful nation than they." Moses replied to God, "And what will happen when the Egyptians hear about it? You have brought this nation out from among them with your great power. And what if they tell the people who live in this land, 'They have heard that you, God, have been with this nation, Israel. You, God, have revealed yourself to them face to face, and your cloud stands over them. You go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire at night. Now you want to kill this entire nation like a single man?' The nations who hear this news about you will say that God was not able to bring this nation to the land that He swore to them, so He slaughtered them in the desert. Now, O God, is the time for you to exercise even more restraint you once declared. God is slow to anger, great in love, and forgiving of sin and rebellion. He does not clear those who do not repent, but keeps in mind the sins of the fathers for their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. With your great love, forgive the sin of this nation, just as you have forgiven them from the time they left Egypt until now." God said, "I will grant forgiveness as you have requested, but as I am live and as God's glory fills all the world, I will punish all the people who saw my glory and the miracles that I did in Egypt and the desert, but still tried to test me these 10 times by not obeying me. They will therefore not see the land that I swore to their ancestors. All those who provoked me will not see it. The only exception will be my servant Caleb, since he showed a different spirit and followed me wholeheartedly. I will bring him to the land that he explored, and his descendants will possess it. The Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valley. Tomorrow you will have to leave this place and strike out into the desert toward the Red Sea." God spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "How long shall this evil group exist, complaining against me? I have heard how the Israelites are complaining about me. Tell them as follows, 'As I am live, it is God's solemn declaration that I will make your accusations against me come true. Because you complain about me, your corpses will fall in this desert. This will happen to your complete tally, everyone over 20 years old who was counted. My oath is that you will not come into the land regarding which I swore with a raised hand that I would let you live in it undisturbed. The only exceptions will be Caleb son of Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. You said that their children will be taken captive, but they will be the ones I will bring there, so that they will know the land that you rejected. You, however, will fall as corpses in the desert. Your children will be herded from place to place in the desert for 40 years, paying for your indiscretion until the last of your corpses lie here in the desert. The punishment shall parallel the number of days you spend exploring the land. They weigh 40 days, and they shall be 1 year for each day, a total of 40 years until your sin is forgiven. You will then know how I act. I, God, have spoken, and there is no way that I will not do this to the entire evil community that has banded against me. They will end their lives in this desert, and here is where they will die. The men whom Moses sent to explore the land and who returned and complained about it to the entire community, slandering the land, were punished immediately. The men who had given a bad report about the land thus died before God in the plague. Among the men who went to explore the land, only Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh remained alive. Moses related God's word to all the Israelites, and they were overcome with terrible grief. When they got up early in the morning, they began climbing toward the top of the mountain, declaring, "We are now ready. We shall go forward to the place that God described. We admit that we were mistaken." "Why are you going against God's word?" said Moses. "It won't work. Do not proceed. God is not with you. Don't be killed by your enemies. Up ahead of you are the Amalekites and Canaanites, and you will fall by the sword. You have gone away from God, and now God will not be with you." The people defiantly climbed toward the top of the mountain, but the ark of God's covenant and Moses did not move from the camp. The Amalekites and Canaanites who lived on that mountain swooped down and defeated the Israelites, pursuing them with crushing force all the ways to Chorma. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and say to them, "When you come to your homeland that I am giving you, you will be presenting fire offerings to God. They may be burnt offerings or other sacrifices, either for a general or specific pledge or for your festivals, taken from the cattle or smaller animals. They shall be meant to provide an pleasing fragrance to God. The one bringing the sacrifice to God must then present a grain offering consisting of 1/10 ephah of the best grade wheat meal mixed with 1/4 hin olive oil. The wine for the libation shall also be 1/4 hin. They shall be for each sheep offered as a burnt offering or peace sacrifice. For a ram you shall prepare a grain offering of 2/10 ephah wheat meal mixed with 1/3 hin oil. The wine for the libation shall also be 1/3 hin, presented as an appeasing fragrance to God. If you prepare one of the cattle as a burnt offering or other sacrifice to fulfill a vow or as a peace offering to God, then together with each animal one must present a grain offering of 3/10 ephah of wheat meal mixed with 1/2 hin oil. The wine presented as a libation shall also be 1/2 hin as a fire offering, an appeasing fragrance to God. You must follow this prescription for each bull or ram or among the smaller animals, for sheep and goats. Regardless of the number prepared, you must present the prescribed meal offering for each one. In order to present a fire offering that is an appeasing fragrance to God, every native-born Israelite must present it in this manner along with the prescribed grain offerings. If a proselyte joins you or lives among you in future generations and he prepares a fire offering as an appeasing fragrance to God, he must do it in exactly the same manner. Among the group that may marry one another, the same rule shall apply both to you and to the proselyte who joins. It is an eternal law for future generations that the proselyte shall be the same as you before God. There shall thus be one Torah and one law for you and for the proselyte who joins you. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and say to them, "When you come to the land to which I am bringing you and you eat the land's produce, you must separate an elevated gift for God. You must separate the first portion of your kneading as a dove offering. It must be separated very much like the elevated gift that is taken from the threshing floor. In future generations, you must thus give the first of your kneading as an elevated gift to God. This is the law if you inadvertently commit an act of idolatry which is equivalent to violating all these commandments that God gave to Moses. It is like a violation of all that God commanded you through Moses from the day that God gave his commandments, as well as what he will command you later in future generations. If such a sin is committed inadvertently by the community because of their leadership, the entire community must prepare one young bull for a burnt offering as an appeasing fragrance to God along with its prescribed grain offering and libation. They must also present one goat for a sin offering. The priest shall then make atonement for the entire Israelite community and they will be forgiven. It was inadvertent and they brought the sacrifice as a fire offering to God along with their sin offering before God for their misdeed. Since all the people acted without knowledge, the entire Israelite community along with the proselytes who joined them shall thus be forgiven. If a single individual commits such a sin inadvertently, he must bring a yearling female goat for a sin offering. The priest will then make atonement before God for the individual who sinned inadvertently to expiate his sin, and he will be forgiven. There shall be a single law for one who does such an inadvertent act, whether he is a native-born Israelite or a proselyte who joins them. However, if a person commits such an act of idolatry high-handedly, whether he is native-born or a proselyte, he is a blaspheming God, and that person shall be cut off spiritually from among his people. Since he has denigrated God's word and violated his commandment, that person shall be utterly cut off spiritually and his sin shall remain upon him. While the Israelites were in the desert, they discovered a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath. The ones who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moses, Aaron, and the entire community. Since it was not specified what must be done to him, they placed him under guard. God said to Moses, "That man must die. Let the entire community pelt him with stones outside the camp." The entire community took him outside the camp and they pelted him to death with stones. It was done as God had commanded Moses. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and have them make tassels on the corners of the garments for all generations. They shall include a twist of sky blue wool in the corner tassels. They shall be your tassels, and when you see them, you shall remember all of God's commandments, so as to keep them. You will then not stray after your heart and eyes, which in the past have led you to immorality. You will thus remember and keep all my commandments, and be holy to your God. I am God your Lord, who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I am God, your Lord. Korach. Korach, son of Yitzhar, a grandson of Kehoth and great-grandson of Levi, began rebellion along with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab and On, son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben. They had a confrontation with Moses along with 250 Israelites who were men of rank in the community, representatives at the assembly and famous. They demonstrated against Moses and Aaron and declared to them, "You have gone too far. All the people in the community are holy and God is with them. Why are you setting yourselves above God's congregation?" When Moses heard this, he threw himself on his face. Then he spoke to Korach and his whole party. Tomorrow morning, he said, God will show that he knows who is his and who is holy, and he will bring them close to him. He shall choose those who shall be allowed to present offerings to him. This is what you must do. Let Korach and his entire party take fire pans. Tomorrow place fire on them and offer incense on them before God. The man whom God chooses shall then be the Holy One. You sons of Levi have also gone too far. Moses tried to reason with Korach. Listen to what I have to say, you sons of Levi. Is not it enough that the God of Israel has separated you from the community of Israel? He has brought you close to him, allowing you to serve in God's tabernacle and to minister as the community's leaders. Although he gave this privilege to you and all your fellow Levites, you are now also demanding the priesthood. It is actually against God that you and your party are demonstrating. After all, who is around that you should have grievances against him? Moses then sent word to summon Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab. We won't come, was their response. Isn't it enough that you brought us out Egypt, a land flowing with milk and honey, just to kill us in the desert? What right do you have to set yourself above us? You did not bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey, or give us inheritance of fields with vineyards. Do you think that you can pull something over our eyes? We will definitely not come. Moses became very angry. He prayed to God, "Do not accept their offering. I did not take a single donkey from them. I did not do any of them any harm." Moses then said to Korah, "You and all your party will have to present yourselves before God. You and your party will be there tomorrow along with Aaron. Each man shall take his fire pan and place incense on it, and each one shall then present it before God. There shall thus be 250 fire pans besides the pan that you and Aaron will have. Each one took his fire pan, placed fire on it, and then offered incense. They stood at the communion tent entrance along with Moses and Aaron. Then when Korach had rallied his whole party to the communion tent entrance, God's glory suddenly became visible to the entire community. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Separate yourselves from this community, and I will destroy them in an instant." Moses and Aaron fell on their faces. They prayed, "Omnipotent God of all living souls, if one man sins, shall you direct divine wrath at the entire community?" God spoke to Moses, telling him to announce to the entire community, "Withdraw from the pavilion of Korach, Dathan and Abiram." Moses took the initiative and, followed by the elders of Israel, went over to Dathan and Abiram. He announced to the community, "Get away from the tents of these evil men. Do not touch anything that is theirs, lest you be swept away because of all their sins." The people withdrew from around the pavilion of Korach, Dathan and Abiram. Dathan and Abiram went out and stood defiantly at the entrance of their tents, along with their wives, sons, and infants. Moses announced, "This shall demonstrate to you that God sent me to do all these deeds, and I did not make up anything myself. If these men die like all other men and share the common fate of man, then God did not send me. But if God creates something entirely new, making the earth open its mouth and swallow them and all that is theirs, so that they descend to the depths alive, then it is these men who are provoking God." Moses had hardly finished speaking when the ground under Dathan and Abiram split. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their houses, along with all the men who were with Korach and their property. They fell into the depths along with all that was theirs. The earth then covered them over, and they were lost to the community. Hearing their cries, all the Israelites around them screamed that the earth would also swallow them up, and they began to run away. Fire then came down from God, and it consumed the 250 men who were presenting the incense. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, that the fire pans have been sanctified, and he must gather them up from the burned area. He shall then scatter the burning coals far and wide. The fire pans belonging to the men who committed a mortal sin have been presented before God and thus sanctified. So he shall make them into beaten plates to cover the altar. Let this be a sign for the Israelites." Eleazar took the copper fire pans that the victims of the fire had presented, and he beat them flat as a covering for the altar. It was to be a reminder for the Israelites, so that no one other than a descendant of Aaron shall bring unauthorized fire and burn incense before God. They shall then not be like Korach and his party. Eleazar thus did as God had told him through Moses. The next day, the entire Israelite community began to complain to Moses. "You have killed God's people," they exclaimed. The people were demonstrating against Moses and Aaron. When they turned toward the communion tent, it was suddenly covered with the cloud, and God's glory appeared. Moses and Aaron went to the front of the communion tent. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Stand clear of this community, and I will destroy them in an instant." Moses and Aaron threw themselves on their faces. Moses then said to Aaron, "Take the fire pan and place on it some fire from the altar. Offer incense and go quickly to the community to make atonement for them. Divine wrath is coming forth from God. The plague has already begun." Aaron took the pans as Moses had told him, and he ran to the middle of the assembled masses, where the plague had already begun to kill people. He offered the incense to atone for the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was checked. The number of people who died in that plague was 14,700. These were in addition to the ones who died because of Korach's rebellion. When the plague had been stopped, Aaron returned to Moses at the communion tent entrance. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and take a staff from each paternal tribe. 12 staffs shall thus be taken from all the leaders, one for each of the paternal tribes. Let each man write his name on his staff. Since there shall be only one staff for the head of each paternal tribe, write Aaron's name on Levi's staff. Place the staffs in the communion tent before the ark of testimony, where I commune with you. The staff of the man who is my choice will then blossom. I will thus rid myself of the complaints that the Israelites are directing at you. Moses spoke to the Israelites, and each of the leaders gave him a staff for his paternal tribe. There were 12 staffs with Aaron's staff among them. Moses placed the staffs before God in the testimony tent. The next day, when Moses came to the testimony tent, Aaron's staff, representing the house of Levi, had blossomed. It had given forth leaves and was now producing blossoms, and almonds were ripening on it. Moses brought all the staffs out from before God and let all the Israelites see them. Each man took his own staff. God said to Moses, "Put Aaron's staff back there before the ark of testimony as a keepsake. Let it be a sign for anyone who wants to rebel. This should put an end to their complaints to me, and then they will not die." Moses did exactly as God had instructed him. The Israelites said to Moses, "We are going to die. We will be destroyed. We are all lost. Whoever approaches God's tabernacle dies. Are we then doomed to die?" God said to Aaron, "You along with your sons and your paternal tribes shall expiate any sin associated with the sanctuary. You and your descendants will also expiate any sin associated with your priesthood. Also bring close to you your brothers, the members of your father's tribe, Levi. Let them be your associates and minister to you and your descendants before the testimony tent. The Levites shall thus be entrusted with their responsibilities toward you and the tent, but they shall not approach the sacred furniture or the altar, so that you and they not die. The Levites shall be your associated, and they shall be entrusted with responsibility for the communion tent and all the tent service. Let no unauthorized person join them. Let them be entrusted with responsibility for the sanctuary and the altar, so that there not be any more divine wrath directed at the Israelites. I have thus taken your brethren, the Levite, from among the other Israelites as a gift to you. They are given over to God to perform the communion tent service. You and your sons shall be entrusted with your priesthood, so that your service shall include everything that pertains to the altar and to anything inside the cloth partition. This is the gift of service that I have given you as your priesthood. Any unauthorized person who participates shall die." God announced to Aaron, "I have given you responsibility for my elevated gifts. I am thus giving you all the sacred gifts of the Israelites as part of your anointment. These shall be an eternal portion for your descendants. Among the fire offerings that are holy of holies, the following shall be yours: all the Israelite sacrifices, all their grain offerings, all the sin offerings, all their guilt offerings, and everything that they return to me. These shall be holy of holies to you and your descendants. Every male priest may eat these offerings, but you must eat them in a most holy area, since they must remain holy to you. This is what shall be bestowed as an elevated gift to you. All the Israelites' wave offerings are given to you along with your sons and daughters as an everlasting portion. Everyone in your household who is ritually clean may eat them. The dedicated portion of oil, wine and grain that must initially be presented to God is now given to you. The first fruit of all that grows in your land which is presented to God shall be yours. Everyone in your household who is ritually clean may eat it. Everything that the Israelites declare taboo shall be yours. The first fruits of the worm that must be presented to God among man and beast shall be yours. However, you must redeem firstborn humans as well as the firstborn of unclean animals. The redemption of a firstborn human male from 1 month old shall be made with the usual endowment of 5 shekels by the sanctuary standard, where the shekel is 20 gerahs. You must not, however, redeem the firstborn of an ox, sheep or goat, since such firstborn are sacred. You must therefore dash their blood on the altar and burn their choice parts as an appeasing fragrance to God. Their flesh shall then belong to you like the chest presented as a wave offering and the right thigh of peace offerings. I have thus given you together with your sons and daughters as an eternal portion the elevated gifts from the sacred offerings that the Israelites present to God for you and your descendants. This is a covenant that shall be preserved forever before God. God then said to Aaron, "You will not have any inheritance in the land of the Israelites, and you will not have a portion among them. I myself shall be a portion and inheritance among the Israelites. To the descendants of Levi, I am now giving all the tithes in Israel as an inheritance. This is in exchange for their work, the service that they perform in the communion tent. The other Israelites shall therefore no longer come forth to the communion tent, since they can then become guilty of sin and die. Instead, the necessary service in the communion tent will be performed by the Levites, and they will expiate the sins of the Israelites. It shall be an eternal law for future generations that the Levites not have any land inheritance. Instead, the inheritance that I am giving the Levites shall consist of the tithes of the Israelites, which they separate as an elevated gift. I have therefore told the Levites that they shall not have any land inheritance among the Israelites. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Levites and say to them, when you take from the Israelite the tithe that I have given you as your inheritance from them, you must separate from it an elevated gift to God, a tithe of the tithe. This tithe given to you by the Israelites is your own elevated gift, and it is exactly like grain from the threshing floor or wine from the vat. You must therefore separate an elevated gift from all the tithes that you take from the Israelites, and you must give it as God's elevated gift to Aaron the priest. Thus, from all that is given to you, you must separate God's elevated gift, taking a sanctified portion as its dedicated tithe for the priest. Say to the Levites, after you have separated out the dedicated tithe for the priest, the rest shall be for all the Levites exactly like ordinary produce from the threshing floor and wine vat. You and your household can eat it anywhere you desire, since it is your wage for your service in the communion tent. Therefore, after you have separated out the dedicated tithe, you will not bear any sin because of it. You will thus not profane the sacred offerings of the Israelites, and you will not die. Chukat. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, telling them that the following is declared to be the Torah's decree as commanded by God. Speak to the Israelites and have them bring you a completely red cow which has no blemish and which has never had a yoke on it. Give it to Eleazar the priest, and he shall have it brought outside the camp. It shall then be slaughtered in his presence. Eleazar the priest shall take the blood with his finger and sprinkle it toward the communion tent 7 times. The cow shall then be burned in Eleazar's presence. Its skin, flesh, blood, and entrails must be burned. The priest shall take a piece of cedar wood, some hyssop, and some crimson wool, and throw it into the burning cow. The priest must then immerse his vestments and his body in a mikvah and remain unclean until evening, after which he may come into the camp. The one who burns the cow must also immerse his clothing and body in a mikvah and then remain unclean until evening. A ritually clean person shall gather up the cow's ashes and place them outside the camp in a clean place. They shall be a keepsake for the Israelite community to be used for the sprinkling water as a means of purification. The one who gathers up the cow's ashes must immerse his body and his clothing and remain unclean until evening. All this shall be an eternal law for the Israelites and for any proselyte who joins them. If one has contact with any dead human being, he shall become ritually unclean for 7 days. In order to become clean, he must have himself sprinkled with the purification water on the 3rd day and the 7th day. Any person who touches the corpse of a human being who has died and does not have himself sprinkled shall be cut off spiritually from Israel if he defiles God's tabernacle by entering it. When a man dies in a tent, this is the law: everything that comes into the tent or was originally in the tent shall be unclean for 7 days. Every open vessel that does not have an airtight seal shall be unclean. Similarly, anyone who touches a victim of the sword, any other corpse, a human bone, or a grave, even in the open field, shall be unclean for 7 days. Some of the dust from the burnt purification offering shall be taken for such an unclean person. It shall be placed into a vessel that has been filled with water directly from a running spring. A ritually clean person shall then take some hyssop and dip it into the water. He shall sprinkle the water on the tent, on all the vessels and persons who were in it, and on anyone who touched a bone, a murder victim, or any other corpse or a grave. The ritually clean person shall sprinkle the water on the unclean person on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day the purification process is completed. On the 7th day, when the person undergoing purification must immerse his clothing and body in a mikvah and then become ritually clean in the evening. If a person is unclean and does not purify himself and then defiles God's sanctuary by entering it, that person shall be cut off spiritually from the community as long as the purification water has not been sprinkled on him. He shall remain unclean. This shall be to you a law for all times. One who sprinkles the purification water other than when it is done for the purification ritual must immerse both his body and his clothing. However, if he merely touches the purification water, he must only immerse his body and then be unclean until evening. Anything that a person unclean by contact with the dead touches shall become unclean. Moreover, any person touching him shall be unclean until evening. In the first month, the entire Israelite community came to the Zin desert and the people stopped in Kadesh. It was there that Miriam died and was buried. The people did not have any water, so they began demonstrating against Moses and Aaron. The people disputed with Moses. We wish that we had died together with our brothers before God, they declared. Why did you bring God's congregation to this desert so that we and our livestock should die? Why did you take us out of Egypt and bring us to this terrible place? It is an area where there are no plants, figs, grapes, or pomegranates. Now there is not even any water to drink. Moses and Aaron moved away from the demonstration to the communion tent entrance and fell on their faces. God's glory was revealed to them. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the staff and you and Aaron assemble the community. Speak to the cliff in the presence and it will give forth its water. You will thus bring forth water from the cliff and allow the community and the livestock to drink." Moses took the staff from before God as he had been instructed. Moses and Aaron then assembled the congregation before the cliff. "Listen now, you rebels," shouted Moses. "Shall we produce water for you from this cliff?" With that, Moses raised his hand and struck the cliff twice with his staff. A huge amount of water gushed out, and the community and the animals were able to drink. God said to Moses and Aaron, "You did not have enough faith in me to sanctify me in the presence of the Israelites. Therefore you shall not bring this assembly to the land that I have given you." These are the waters of dispute, Meribah, where the Israelite disputed with God, and where he was nevertheless sanctified. Moses sent envoys from Kadesh to the king of Edom with the following message: "This is what your brother Israel declares. You know about all the troubles that we have encountered. Our fathers migrated to Egypt and we lived in Egypt for a long time. The Egyptians mistreated both our fathers and us. When we cried out to God, He heard our voice and sent a representative to take us out of Egypt. We are now in Kadesh, a city at the edge of your territories. Please let us pass through your land. We will not go through any fields or vineyards, and we will not drink any water from your wells. Until we pass through your territories, we will travel along the king's highway, not turning aside to the right or to the left." Edom's response was, "Do not pass through my land, or I will greet you with the sword." The Israelites said, "We will keep on the beaten path. If we or our cattle drink any of your water, we will pay the full price. It is of no concern. We only want to pass through on foot. Do not come through," was Edom's response. Edom came forth to confront the Israelites with a large number of people and a show of force. Edom thus refused to allow Israel to pass through its territories, and Israel had to go around the area. Moving on from Kadesh, the entire Israelite community came to Hor Mountain. At Hor Mountain, God said to Moses and Aaron, "Aaron will now die and be gathered up to his people. He will not come to the land that I am giving the Israelites, because you rebelled against my word at the waters of dispute. You, Moses, take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up to Hor Mountain. Divest Aaron of his vestments and place them on his son Eleazar. Aaron will then be gathered up to his ancestors and died there." Moses did as God commanded him. The three of them climbed Hor Mountain in the presence of the entire community. Moses divested Aaron of his vestments and placed them on Aaron's son Eleazar. Aaron died there on the top of the mountain when Moses and Eleazar descended from the mountain. The people realized that Aaron had died. The entire family of Israel mourned Aaron for 30 days. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that the Israelites were traveling along the Atharim highway, he attacked them and took some captives. The Israelites made a vow to God and said, "If you give this nation into our hand, we will render the cities taboo." God heard Israel's voice and he allowed them to defeat the Canaanites. The Israelites declared them and the cities taboo. The place was therefore named Taboo Charma. The Israelites moved on from Hor Mountain, going by way of the South Sea, so as to skirt the territory of Edom. The people began to become discouraged along the way. The people spoke out against God and Moses. "Why did you take us out of Egypt to die in the desert? There is no bread and no water. We are getting disgusted with this insubstantial food." God sent poisonous snakes against the people, and when they began biting the people, a number of Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned by speaking against God and you. Pray to God and have him take the snakes away from us." When Moses prayed for the people, God said to Moses, "Make yourself the image of a venomous snake and place it on a banner. Everyone who is bitten shall look at it and live." Moses made a copper snake and placed it on a high pole. Whenever a snake bit a man, he would gaze at the copper snake and live. The Israelites then moved on and camped in Ovoth. From Ovoth they moved on and camped in the desolate passes along Moab's eastern border. They then continued and camped along the Zered brook. They traveled further and camped in the desert extending from the Amorite border on the opposite side of the Arnon River. The Arnon is the Moabite border separating Moab from the Amorites. It is therefore told in the book of God's wars as an outermost boundary, "I have given you the streams of Arnon, as well as the valleys, rapids that hug Moab's borders, turning aside at the fortress settlement." From there, the Israelites traveled to the well. This is the well regarding which God said to Moses, "Gather the people, and I will give them water." It was then that Israel sang this song, "Rise, O well, respond to this song." A well was dug by princes, sung by the people's leaders, carved out with the staffs. From the desert, the Israelites went to Montana. From Montana to Nachaliel, and from Nachaliel to Bamoth. From Bamoth they went to Haggai in the field of Moab. It is on the top of the cliff that overlooks the wastelands. Israel sent emissaries to Sihon, king of the Amorites, with the following message: "Let us pass through your land. We will not turn aside to the fields and vineyards, and we will not drink any well water. We will follow the king's highway until we have passed through your territories." Sihon, however, did not let Israel pass through his territories. Instead, Sihon mustered up all his people and went out to confront Israel in the desert. When he came to Yahaz, he attacked Israel. Israel struck him down with the sword and occupied his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as the borders of the Ammonites. The borders of the Ammonites, however, remained firm. Israel thus took all these cities. They later settled in Heshbon and all its tributary towns, all the Amorite cities. Heshbon was the capital of Sihon, king of the Amorites. He had fought against the first king of Moab and taken all his land as far as the Arnon. The ministerials therefore say, "Come to Heshbon, let Sihon's city be built and established." For a fire has come out of Heshbon, a flame from Sihon's capital, and it has consumed Ar of Moab, the masters of the Arnon's altars. Woe is to you, Moab, you are destroyed, nation of Chemosh. Your sons have become refugees, your daughters are captive to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Moab's kingdom was obliterated from Heshbon as far as Dibon, and was laid waste as far as Nophek near Medeba. Israel thus settled in the Amorite territory. Moses sent out men to reconnoiter Yazer, and they captured its surrounding villages, driving out the Amorites who lived there. The Israelites then went on and headed north toward the Bashan. At Edrei, Og, king of the Bashan, came out with all his people to engage the Israelites in battle. God said to Moses, "Do not be afraid of him. I have given him along with all his people and territory into your hand. I will do the same to him as I did to Sihon, king of the Amorites who lived in Heshbon." The Israelites killed Og along with his sons and all his people, leaving no survivors, and they occupied his land. The Israelites then moved on and they camped in the western plains of Moab, across the Jordan from Jericho. Balak. When Balak son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, the Moabites became deathly afraid because the Israelite people were so numerous, dreading the Israelites. Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Now the Israelite community will lick up everything around us, just as a bull licks up all the vegetation in the field." Balak son of Zippor was the king of Moab. He sent emissaries to Balaam son of Beor to his native land in Pethor on the Euphrates River. They were to summon him with the following message: a nation that covers the land surface has left Egypt and is now staying right near us. This nation is too powerful for us alone, so if you would come and curse this nation for me, then we may be able to defeat them and drive them from the area. I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed. The elders of Moab and Midian, versed in occult arts, went to Balaam, conveying to him Balak's message. Spend the night here, he replied to them, and when God speaks to me, I will be able to give you an answer. The Moabite dignitaries remained with Balaam. God appeared to Balaam and asked, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam replied to God, "Balak son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent me a message. A nation that covers the earth's surface has left Egypt. Come and curse them for me, so that hopefully I will be able to fight against them and drive them away." God said to Balaam, "Do not go with them. Do not curse the nation in question, because it is a blessed nation." When Balaam got up in the morning, he said to Balak's dignitaries, "Go home. God refuses to let me go with you." The Moabite dignitaries set out, and when they came to Balak, they said, "Balaam refuses to go with us." Balak sent another delegation, this time with a larger number of dignitaries, higher in rank than the first. When they came to Balaam, they gave him the following message: "In the name of Balak son of Zippor, do not refuse to come to me. I will give you great honor doing anything you say, but please come and curse this nation for me." Balaam interrupted Balak's servants and said, "Even if Balak gave me his whole palace full of gold and silver, I would not be able to do anything great or small that would violate the word of God my Lord. But now you two remain here overnight, then I will know what God shall declare to me." That night God appeared to Balaam and said to him, "If the men have come to summon you, set out and go with them, but only do exactly as I instruct you." When Balaam got up in the morning, he saddled his female donkey and went with the Moabite dignitaries. God displayed anger because Balaam was so anxious to go, and an angel of God planted himself in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, accompanied by his two boy servants. When the donkey saw God's angel standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, the donkey went aside from the road into the field. Balaam beat the donkey to get it back on the road. God's angel then stood in a narrow path through the vineyards where there was a fence on either side. When the donkey saw God's angel, it edged over to the side, crushing Balaam's foot against the wall. Balaam beat it even more. God's angel continued ahead of Balaam, and he stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn right or left. When the donkey saw God's angel, it lay down, refusing to budge. For Balaam lost his temper and beat the donkey with a stick. God then gave the donkey the power of speech, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you, that you beat me these 3 times? You have been playing games with me," shouted Balaam at the donkey. "If I had had a sword in my hand just now, I would have killed you." The donkey replied to Balaam, "Am I not your old donkey? You have been riding on me as far back as you remember. Have I ever been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," replied Balaam. God then gave Balaam the ability to see, and he perceived the angel standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. Balaam kneeled and prostrated himself on his face. God's angel said to him, "Why did you beat your donkey these 3 times? I have come out to oppose you, because your errand is obnoxious to me." When the donkey saw me, it turned aside these 3 times. If I had not turned aside before me, as it did now, I would have killed you and spared the donkey. Balaam said to God's angel, "I have sinned. I did not know that you were standing on the road before me. If you consider it wrong for me to go, I will go back home." God's angel said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but do not say anything other than the exact words that I declare to you." Balaam thus continued with Balak's dignitaries. When Balak heard that Balaam had arrived, he went out to meet him in the city of Moab, which was at the extreme end of his territory on the edge of the Arnon. Balak said to Balaam, I had to make so much effort to get you. Why did you not come to me right away? Did you think that I could not honor you? And now that I have come to you, replied Balaam to Balak, do you think that I can say anything? I can only declare the words that God places in my mouth. Balaam went with Balak, and they came to the city's suburbs. Balak sacrificed cattle and sheep, sending some to Balaam and the dignitaries who were with him. In the morning, Balak took Balaam and brought him to the high altars of Baal, where you could see as far as the outer edges of the Israelite people. Build 7 altars for me here, said Balaam to Balak, and prepare for me 7 bulls and 7 rams. When Balak did as Balaam had requested, Balak and Balaam sacrificed a bull and ram as a burnt offering on each altar. Balaam said to Balak, keep a wiggle beside your burnt offerings, and I will go. Hopefully God will appear to me and declare that he will show me something that I can relate to you. With that, Balaam went off to meditate. God appeared to Balaam. I have set up 7 altars, said Balaam to God, and I have sacrificed a bull and ram as a burnt offering on each altar. God placed a message in Balaam's mouth and said, go back to Balak and declare exactly what I have told you. When Balaam returned, Balak was still standing in vigil over his burnt offering along with all the Moabite dignitaries. Balaam declared his oracle and said, Balak, king of Moab, has brought me from Aram, from the hills of the east, telling me to come curse Jacob and conjure divine wrath against Israel. But what curse can I pronounce? If God will not grant curse, what divine wrath can I conjure? If God will not be angry. I see this nation from mountain tops and gaze on it from the heights. It is a nation dwelling alone at peace, not counting itself among other nations. Jacob is like the dust. Who can count his hordes? Who can number the seed of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, but let my end be like his. Balak said to Balaam, what have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, but you have made every effort to bless them. Balaam interrupted and said, did not I tell you that I must be very careful to say only what God tells me? If you would, replied Balak, come with me to another place. There you will be able to see only a small section of the Israelite camp, and you will not have to see them all. From there you may be able to curse them for me. With that, he took Balaam to Lookout Field at the top of the cliff. There he built 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Keep a vigil here with your burnt offering, said Balaam to Balak, and I will go yonder and seek a vision. God appeared to Balaam and placed a message in his mouth. He said, return to Balak and declare exactly what I have told you. When Balaam returned, Balak was standing vigil over his burnt offering, along with the Moabite dignitaries. What has God declared? Asked Balak. Balaam proclaimed his oracle and said, rise, Balak, and listen. Pay close attention to my insight, son of Zippor. God is not human that he should be false, nor mortal that he should change his mind. Shall he say something and not do it, or speak and not fulfill? It is a blessing that I have taken, and when there is such a blessing, I cannot reverse it. God does not look at wrongdoing in Jacob, and he sees no vice in Israel. God their Lord is with them, and they have the king's friendship. Since God brought them out of Egypt, they are like his highest expression of strength. No black magic can be effective against Jacob, and no occult powers against Israel. How is God acting? Is the only question pertinent to Jacob and Israel. This is a nation that rises like the king of beasts and lifts itself like a lion. It does not lie down until it eats its prey and drinks the blood of its kill. Balak said to Balaam, if you cannot curse them, at least don't bless them. Balaam interrupted and said to Balak, my exact words to you were, I will do precisely what God declares. Were not they? If you would, let's go on, said Balak to Balaam. I will take you somewhere else. Hopefully God will consider it proper to let you curse them for me there. Balak took Balaam to the top of the peak that overlooks the wasteland. Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars here and prepare for me here 7 bulls and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam said, and he sacrificed a bull and ram as a burnt offering on each altar. When Balaam realized that God desired to bless Israel, he did not seek out the occult forces as he had done before. Instead, he set his gaze toward the desert. When Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel dwelling at peace by tribes, God's Spirit was on him. He proclaimed his oracle and said, "This is the word of Beor's son Balaam, the word of the man with the enlightened eye. It is the word of one who hears God's sayings, who sees a vision of the Almighty falling into a meditative trance with mystical insight. How good are your tents, Jacob, your tabernacles, Israel. They stretch out like streams, like gardens by the river. They are like the aloes God has planted, like cedars by the water. His river shall overflow, and his crops shall have abundant water. When the kingdom is established, the king shall be greater than Agag. Since God brought them out of Egypt, they are like his highest expression of strength. God shall devour his enemy nations, grinding their bones and piercing them with his arrows. Israel crouches, lies like a lion, like an awesome lion who will dare rouse him. Those who bless you are blessed, and those who curse you are cursed." Furious at Balaam, Balak struck his hand together. "I brought you to curse my enemies," said Balak to Balaam, "but you blessed them these 3 times. Now go home as fast as you can. I promise to honor you, but God won't let you get any honor." Balaam said to Balak, "My exact words to the messengers you sent me were, 'Even if Balak gives me his whole palace full of gold and silver, I cannot do anything good or bad on my own that would violate God's word.' Is not that true? I must proclaim whatever God declares. Now I am returning to my people, but first I will advise you about what this nation will do to your people in the final days." He then proclaimed his oracle and said, "This is the verse of Beor's son Balaam, the word of the man with the enlightened eye. It is the word of the one who hears God's sayings and knows the highest one's will, who sees a vision of the Almighty while fallen in a meditative trance with mystical insight. I see it, but not now. I perceive it, but not in the near future. A star shall go forth from Jacob, and a staff shall arise in Israel, crushing all of Moab's princes and dominating all of Seth's descendants. Edom shall be demolished, and his enemy Seir destroyed, but Israel shall be triumphant. Out of Jacob shall come an absolute ruler who will obliterate the city's last survivors." When Balaam saw Amalek, he proclaimed his oracle and said, "First among nations is Amalek, but in the end he will be destroyed forever." When he saw the Kenites, he proclaimed his oracle and said, "You live in a fortress and have placed your nest in a cliff. But when the time comes to destroy the Kenites, how long will Assyria hold back from you?" He then declared his oracle and said, "Alas, who can survive God's devastation? Warships shall come from the ports of the Kittim, and they will lay waste Assyria and Eber, but in the end they too shall be destroyed forever." Will that Balaam set out and returned home, Balak also went on his way. Israel was staying in Shittim when the people began to behave immorally with the Moabite girls. The girls invited the people to their religious sacrifices, and the people ate and worshipped the Moabite gods. Israel thus became involved with Baal Peor, and God displayed anger against Israel. God said to Moses, "Take the people's leaders and have them impale the idolaters publicly before God. This will reverse God's display of anger against Israel." Moses said to Israel judges, "Each of you must kill your constituents who were involved with Baal Peor." The judges were still weeping in indecision at the communion tent entrance when an Israelite brought forth a Midianite woman to his brethren before the eyes of Moses and the Israelite community. When Pinchas, the son of Eleazar and a grandson of Aaron the priest, saw this, he rose up from the midst of the assemblage and took a spear in his hand. He followed the Israelite man into the tent's inner chamber and ran them through, driving the spear through the Israelite man and woman's groin. With that, the plague that had struck the Israelites was arrested. In that plague, 24,000 people had died. Pinchas. God spoke to Moses saying, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron the priest, was the one who zealously took up my cause among the Israelites and turned my anger away from them, so that I did not destroy them in my demand for exclusive worship. Therefore tell him that I have given him my covenant of peace. This shall imply a covenant of eternal priesthood to him and his descendants after him. It is given to him because he zealously took up God's cause and made atonement for the Israelites. The name of the man who was killed along with the Midianite woman was Zimri, son of Salu, a prince of the Simeonite paternal line. The name of the Midianite woman who was killed was Casbi, the daughter of Zur, governor of a paternal line in Midian. God spoke to Moses saying, Attack the Midianites and kill them. Since they attack you through their plot with Peor, as well as through their sister Casbi, daughter of a Midianite prince who was killed on the day of plague that resulted from Peor. It was now after the plague God spoke to Moses and Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, saying, Take a census of the entire Israelite community by paternal lines, counting every male over 20 years old who is fit for duty. Moses and Eleazar the priest spoke to the Israelites in the western plains of Moab near the Jordan opposite Jericho, saying, Count those over 20 years old, just as God commanded Moses and the Israelites who had left Egypt. Reuben with Israel's firstborn, the descendants of Reuben were the Enochite family from Enoch, the Paluite family from Palu, the Chezronite family from Chezron, and the Carmite family from Carmi. These were the Reubenite families, and the tally was 43,730. The sons of Palu, Eliab, Nemuel, Dathan and Abiram. Dathan and Abiram were the communal leaders who led a revolution against Moses and Aaron as part of Korach's rebellion against God. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, and Korach, when the rebellious group died, and fire annihilated 250 men. This involved a divine miracle. The sons of Korach, however, did not die. By family, the descendants of Simeon were the Nemuelite family from Nemuel, the Yaminite family from Yamini, the Yachinite family from Yachin, the Zerchite family from Zerach, and the Saulite family from Saul. These are the families of Simeon, numbering 22,200. By family, the descendants of Gad were the Zephonite family from Zephon, the Chaggite family from Chaggi, the Shunite family from Shuni, the Aznite family from Azni, the Arite family from Eri, the Arodite family from Arod, and the Arelite family from Areli. These are the families of Gad's descendants, their tally being 40,500. The first sons of Judah were Er and Onan, but Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan. By families then, the descendants of Judah were the Shelahite family from Shelah, the Perzite family from Perez, and the Zerachite family from Zerach. The descendants of Perez were the Cherzonite family from Chezron, and the Chamulite family from Chamul. These are the families of Judah, the tally being 76,500. By families, the descendants of Issachar were the Tolaite family from Tola, the Punite family from Pua, the Yeshuite family from Yeshuv, and the Shimronite family from Shimron. These are the families of Issachar, the tally being 64,300. By their families, the descendants of Zebulun were the Sadite family from Sered, the Elonite family from Elon, and the Yashleelite family from Yashleel. These are the families of Zebulun, the tally being 60,500. By their families, the descendants of Joseph were Manasseh and Ephraim. The descendants of Manasseh consisted of the Machirite family from Machir. Machir's son was Gilead, and from Gilead came the family of the Gileadites. These were the descendants of Gilead: the Eezerite family from Eezer, the Chelikite family from Chelek, the Asrielite family from Asriel, the Shechmite family from Shechem, the Shemidite family from Shemida, and the Chephite family from Chepher. Chepher's son Zelophehad did not have any sons, only daughters. The names of Zelophehad's daughter were Mashla, Noah, Chagla, Milcah, and Tirzah. These are the families of Manasseh, and the tally was 52,700. By their family, the descendants of Ephraim were the Shuthelchite family from Shuthelek, the Bachrite family from Becher, and the Tachanite family from Tachan. The descendants of Shuthelek consisted of the Aaronite family from Iran. These are the families of Ephraim's descendants, the tally being 32,500. All these were the descendants of Joseph by their families. By their families, the descendants of Benjamin were the Baalite family from Bela, the Ashbelite family from Ashbel, the Achiramite family from Achiram, the Shephufamite family from Shephufam, and the Chufamite family from Chufam. The sons of Bela were Ard and Naaman. These gave rise to the Ardite family and the Naamite family from Naaman. These are Benjamin's descendants by their families, and their tally was 45,600. By their families, the descendants of Dan consisted of the Shuchamite family from Shucham. This was the only family of Dan. The tally of all the families of the Shuchamites was 64,400. By their families, the descendants of Asher were the Yimna family from Yimna, the Yeshwite family from Yeshwi, and the Beriite family from Beria. The descendants of Beria consisted of the Chevrite family from Chever and the Melchilite family from Malchiel. The name of Asher's daughter was Serach. These are the families of Asher's descendants, their tally being 53,400. By their families, the descendants of Naphtali consisted of the Yadzilite family from Yadzil, the Gunite family from Guni, the Yezrite family from Yetzer, and the Shilemite family from Shilem. These are the families of Naphtali, the tally being 45,400. The total tally of the Israelites was thus 6,01,730. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Among these people you shall divide the land as an inheritance, following a number of names recorded. To a larger group you shall give a larger inheritance, while to a smaller group you shall give a smaller inheritance. Each one shall thus be given his hereditary property according to its tally." However, hereditary property shall be granted to paternal families through a lottery system. This is how the land shall be divided. Whether a group is large or small, its hereditary property shall be divided by a lottery system. These are the tallies of the Levites by the families: the Gershonite family from Gershon, the Kehathite family from Kehath, and the Merarite family from Merari. These are the subfamilies of Levi: the Libnite family, the Chevronite family, the Mashlite family, the Mushite family, and the Korchite family. Kehath had a son, Amram. The name of Amram's wife was Yocheved, a daughter of Levi, who had been born to Levi in Egypt. She bore Amram's children, Aaron and Moses, as well as their sister Miriam. Born to Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Nadab and Abihu, however, died when they offered unauthorized fire before God. Counting every male over 1 month old, the tally of the Levites was 23,000. They were not tallied among the other Israelites because they were not to be given hereditary property among the other Israelites. The above was the census that Moses and Eleazar the priest took of the Israelites in the western plains of Moab on the Jericho section of the Jordan. Among those counted now, there was no one previously counted by Moses and Aaron the priest who had taken a census of the Israelites in the Sinai desert. This was because God had decreed to them that they would all die in the desert and that not a single man would survive, with the exception of Caleb son of Yefuneh and Joshua son of Nun. A petition was presented by the daughters of Zelophehad son of Chepher, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, of the family of Joseph's son Manasseh. The name of these daughters were Machlah, Noah, Chagla, Milcah, and Tirzah. They now stood before Moses, Eleazar the priest, the princes, and the entire community at the communion tent entrance with the following petition. Our father died in the desert. He was not among the members of Korach's party who protested against God, but he died because of his own sin without leaving any sons. Why should our father's name be disadvantaged in his family merely because he did not have a son? Give us a portion of land along with our father's brothers. Moses brought the case before God. God spoke to Moses, saying, "The daughters of Zelophehad have a just claim. Give them a hereditary portion of land alongside their father's brothers. Let their father's hereditary property thus pass over to them. Speak to the Israelites and tell them that if a man dies and has no son, his hereditary property shall pass over to his daughter. If he has no daughter, then his hereditary property shall be given to his brothers. If he has no brothers, you shall give his property to his father's brothers. If his father had no brothers, then you shall give his property to the closest relative in his family, who shall then be his heir." This was the decreed law for the Israelites as God had commanded Moses. God said to Moses, "Climb up to the Avarim mountain, where you will be able to see the land that I am giving to the Israelites. After you see it, you will be gathered up to your people, just as your brother Aaron was. When the community disputed God in the Zin desert, you disobeyed my commandment. When you were to sanctify me before the eyes with the water." God was speaking of the waters of dispute. May Meribah at Kadesh in the Zin desert. Moses spoke to God, saying, "Let the omnipotent God of all living souls appoint a man over the community. Let him come and go before them, and let him bring them forth and lead them. Let God's community not be like sheep that have no shepherd." God said to Moses, "Take Joshua son of Nun, a man of spirit, and lay your hands on him. Have him stand before Eleazar the priest and before the entire community, and let them see you commission him. Invest him with some of your splendor, so that the entire Israelite community will obey him. Let him stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall seek the decision of the Urim before God on his behalf. By this word Joshua along with all the Israelites and the entire community shall come and go." Moses did as God had ordered him. He took Joshua and had him stand before Eleazar the priest and before the entire community. He then laid his hands on him and commissioned him. It was all done as God had commanded Moses. God spoke to Moses, telling him to give the Israelites instructions and tell them, "Be careful to offer my fire offering food as a sacrifice to me in its proper time as my appeasing fragrance. Tell them that the fire offering that they must offer to God shall consist of 2 yearling sheep without blemish each day as a regular daily burnt offering. Prepare 1 sheep in the morning and the second sheep in the afternoon. There shall also be 1/10 ephah of wheat meal for the grain offering, mixed with 1/4 hin hand pressed olive oil. This is the regular daily burnt offering, the same as that presented at Mount Sinai as an appeasing fragrance, a fire offering to God. Its libation shall be 1/4 hin wine for each sheep, poured in the sanctuary as a libation, a drink offering to God. Present the second sheep in the afternoon. You shall present it with the same meal offering and libation as the morning sacrifice. It is a fire offering, an appeasing fragrance to God. On the Sabbath day you shall present 2 additional yearling sheep without blemish, 2/10 ephah wheat meal mixed with oil as a grain offering and its libation. This is the burnt offering presented each Sabbath in addition to the regular daily burnt offering and its libation. On your new moon festivals you shall present as a burnt offering to God 2 young bulls, 1 ram and 7 yearling sheep, all without blemish. There shall be a grain offering of 3/10 ephah wheat meal mixed with oil for each bull, a grain offering of 2/10 ephah wheat meal mixed with oil for the ram, and a grain offering of 1/10 ephah mixed with oil for each sheep. This shall be burnt offering presented as an appeasing fragrance to God. The wine libation shall consist of 1/2 hin for each bull, 1/3 hin for the ram, and 1/4 hin for each sheep. This is the new moon burnt offering for the year's lunar months. There shall also be 1 goat presented as a sin offering to God. All this shall be presented in addition to the regular daily burnt offering and its libation. The 14th day of the first month is God's Passover. Then on the 15th day a festival shall begin, when matzahs shall be eaten for 7 days. The first day shall be a sacred holiday, when you shall do no mundane work. As a burnt fire offering to God, you shall offer 2 young bulls, 1 ram and 7 yearling sheep, making sure that all are without blemish. The grain offering that you must present shall consist of wheat meal mixed with oil, 3/10 ephah for each bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 sheep. There shall also be a sin offering goat to make atonement for you. All these shall be present in addition to the morning burnt offering that is offered as the regular daily sacrifice. On each of the 7 days you shall prepare a similar sacrifice as a consumed fire offering, an appeasing fragrance to God. This shall be in addition to the regular daily burnt offering and its libation. The 7th day shall be a sacred holiday to you, when you shall not do any mundane work. The day of first fruits is when you bring a new grain offering to God as part of your Shavuot festival. It shall be a sacred holiday to you, when you may not do any mundane work. As an appeasing fragrance to God, you shall then present a burnt offering consisting of 2 young bulls, 1 ram and 7 yearling sheep. The grain offering consisting of wheat meal mixed with oil shall be 3/10 ephah for each bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 sheep. There shall also be 1 male goat to atone for you. You must present all this in addition to the regular daily burnt offering and its meal offering. These sacrifices and their libations must be without blemish for you to present them. The first day of the seventh month shall be a sacred holiday to you, when you may not do any mundane work. It shall be a day of sounding the ram's horn. As an appeasing fragrance to God, you must present a burnt offering consisting of one young bull, one ram, and 7 yearling sheep, all without blemish. The grain offering of wheat meal mixed with oil shall be 3 by 10 ephah for the bull, 2 by 10 for the ram, and 1 by 10 for each of the 7 sheep. There shall also be one goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. All this is in addition to the new moon offering, the regular daily offering, and the required meal offering and libations, which are an appeasing fragrance, a fire offering to God. The 10th of this month shall be a sacred holiday to you, when you must fast and not do any work. As a burnt offering for an appeasing fragrance to God, you shall present one young bull, one ram, and 7 yearling sheep, making sure that all are without blemish. The grain offering of wheat meal mixed with oil shall be 3 by 10 ephah for the bull, 2 by 10 for the ram, and 1 by 10 for each of the 7 sheep. There shall also be one goat as a sin offering, in addition to the special atonement sin offering. All these sacrifices and the libations are in addition to the regular daily burnt offering and its meal offering. The 15th day of the 7th month shall be a sacred holiday to you, when no mundane work may be done. You shall celebrate a festival to God for 7 days. As an appeasing fragrance to God, you shall present a burnt offering consisting of 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish. The grain offering of wheat meal mixed with oil shall be 3 by 10 ephah for each of the 13 bulls, 2 by 10 for each of the 2 rams, and 1 by 10 for each of the 14 sheep. There shall also be one goat as a sin offering. This is in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the second day there shall be 12 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish, along with the grain offerings and libations appropriate for the number of bulls, rams, and sheep. There shall also be one goat as a sin offering. These offerings and the libation shall be in addition to the regular daily burnt offering and its grain offering. On the third day there shall be 11 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish. Along with the grain offerings and libations appropriate for the number of bulls, rams, and sheep, there shall also be one goat as a sin offering. All this is in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the fourth day there shall be 10 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish, along with the grain offerings and libations appropriate for the number of bulls, rams, and sheep. There shall also be one goat as a sin offering. All this is in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the fifth day there shall be 9 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish. Along with the grain offerings and libations appropriate for the number of bulls, rams, and sheep, there shall also be one goat as a sin offering. All this is in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the sixth day there shall be 8 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish, along with the grain offerings and libations appropriate for the number of bulls, rams, and sheep. There shall also be one goat as a sin offering. All this is in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the seventh day there shall be 7 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 yearling sheep, all without blemish. Along with the appropriate grain offerings and libations for the number of bulls, rams, and sheep, there shall also be one goat as a sin offering. All this is in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. The 8th day shall be a time of retreat for you, when you shall do no mundane work. As a burnt fire offering for an appeasing fragrance to God, you shall present one bull, 1 ram, and 7 yearling sheep, all without blemish. Along with their appropriate number of meal offerings and libations, there shall also be one goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular daily burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. All these are what you must present to God on your festivals. In addition to your burnt offerings, grain offerings, libations, and peace offerings presented as a general or specific pledge, Moses spoke to the Israelites, telling them all that God had commanded him. Matoth. Moses spoke to the tribal heads of the Israelites, telling them that this is the word that God had commanded. If a man makes a vow to God or makes an oath to obligate himself, he must not break his word. He must do all that he expressed verbally. This is the law when a woman makes a vow to God or binds herself by an obligation while still a girl in her father's house. If a father remains silent when he hears her vow or self-imposed obligation, then all her vows and self-imposed obligations must be kept. However, if he obstructs her on the day he hears it, then any such vow or self-imposed obligation of hers shall not be fulfilled. Since a father has obstructed her, God will forgive her. This is the law if she is betrothed to a man and is bound by her vows and self-imposed verbal obligations. If the men in her life hear about it and remain silent on the day they hear, then her vows and self-imposed obligations must be kept. However, if the men in her life obstruct her on the day they hear about it, they can annul her vows and self-imposed verbal obligations and God will forgive her. The vow of a widow or divorcee must be kept no matter what obligation she takes upon herself. This is the law if a woman makes a vow or an oath for a self-imposed obligation in her husband's house. If her husband hears it and remains silent without obstructing her, then all her vows and self-imposed obligations must be kept. However, if her husband annuls them on the day he hears them, then all her verbally expressed vows and self-imposed obligations need not be kept. Since her husband has annulled them, God will forgive her. Thus, in the case of every vow or oath involving self-denial, a woman's husband can uphold them and her husband can annul them. If her husband remains silent for the entire day, then he has automatically upheld any vow or obligation that she has assumed. He has upheld them simply by remaining silent on the day he heard them. However, if he annuls them after hearing them, he removes any guilt that she may have for violating them. These are the rules that God commanded Moses regarding the relationship between a man and his wife, and between a father and his daughter as long as she is a girl in her father's house. God spoke to Moses, saying, "Take revenge for the Israelites against the Midianites. Then you shall die and be gathered to your people." Moses spoke to the people, saying, "Detach men for armed service against Midian, so that God's revenge can be taken against the Midianites. 1,000 from each of Israel's tribes shall be sent into armed service." From the thousands of Israel, 1,000 volunteered from each tribe, a total of 12,000 special troops. Moses sent forth the 1,000 men from each tribe as an army along with Pinchas, son of Eleazar, the priest, who was in charge of the sacred articles and signal trumpets. They mounted a surprise attack against Midian as God had commanded Moses and killed all the adult males. Along with the other victims, they also killed the 5 kings of Midian: Evi, Rechem, Zur, Chur and Reva. The 5 Midianite kings, they also killed Balaam son of Beor by the sword. The Israelites took captive all the women of Midian and the children. They took as booty all their animals, all their possessions and all their wealth. The Israelites also set fire to all their residential cities and fortresses, taking all the booty and plunder, both man and beast. They brought the captives, the plunder and the spoils to Moses, Eleazar the priest and the entire Israelite community who were in the western plains of Moab on the Jericho Jordan. Moses, Eleazar and all the community princes went out to greet them outside the camp. However, Moses was angry at the generals and captains, who were the officers returning from the military campaign. "Why have you kept all the women alive?" demanded Moses. "These are exactly the ones who were involved with the Israelites at Balaam's instigation, causing them to be unfaithful to God in the Peor incident and bringing a plague on God's community. Now kill every male child as well as every woman who has been involved intimately with a man. However, all the young girls who have not been involved intimately with a man you may keep alive for yourselves. You must now remain outside the camp for 7 days. Whoever killed a person or touched a corpse must purify himself on the 3rd and 7 days as far as you and your captives are concerned. Every garment, every leather article, anything made of goat products and every wooden article must undergo such purification," Eleazar the priest said to the soldiers returning from the campaign. This is the rule that God commanded Moses. As far as the gold, silver, copper, iron, tin and lead are concerned, whatever was used over fire must be brought over fire and purged, and then purified with the sprinkling water. However, that which was not used over fire need only be immersed in a mikvah. You yourselves must also immerse your bodies and your garments on the seventh day, and you will then be clean so that you can enter the camp. God spoke to Moses, saying, together with Eleazar the priest and the community's paternal leaders, you must take an accounting of the men and animals plundered as spoil. Then divide the plunder equally, giving half to the warriors who went out to battle and the other half to the community. From the soldiers who participated in the campaign, Levi a tax to God consisting of 1 out of 500 of the humans, cattle, donkeys and sheep. Take this from their half and give it to Eleazar the priest as an elevated gift to God. From the half that is going to the other Israelites, take 1 part out of 50 of the humans, cattle, donkeys, sheep and other animals and give it to the Levites who are entrusted with God's tabernacle. Moses and Eleazar the priest did as God had commanded Moses. In addition to the goods that the troops had taken as booty, the plunder consisted of 675,000 sheep, 72,000 head of cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 humans, women who had never experienced intimacy with a man. The half portion for those who went out in the army was as follows. The number of sheep was 337,500, and the tax for God from the sheep consisted of 675 sheep. They weighed 36,000 cattle, out of which the tax for God was 72. They weighed 30,500 donkeys, out of which the tax for God was 61. They weighed 16,000 humans, out of which the tax for God consisted of 32 individuals. Moses gave the tax to Eleazar the priest as an elevated gift to God, as God had commanded Moses. The half that Moses took from the military men for the other Israelites as the community's portion consisted of 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys and 16,000 humans. From the humans and beasts that way, the Israelites half Moses took 1 out of 50 and gave them to the Levites who are entrusted with God's tabernacle. It was all done as God had commanded Moses. The generals and captains who were officers over the army's divisions approached Moses. They said to Moses, "We have taken a census of the warriors under our command and not a single man has been lost. We therefore want to bring an offering to God. Every man who found any gold article such as an anklet, a breastplate, a finger ring, an earring or a body ornament wishes to bring it to atone for our souls before God." Moses and Eleazar the priest took all the gold articles from them. The entire elevated gift of gold that was offered to God totaled 16,750 shekels. This was given by the generals and captains. The other soldiers, however, took their plunder for themselves. Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold from the generals and captains and brought it to the communion tent as a remembrance for the Israelites before God. The descendants of Reuben and Gad had an extremely large number of animals, and they saw that the Yaazar and Gilead areas were good for livestock. The descendants of Gad and Reuben therefore came and presented the following petition to Moses, Eleazar the priest and the community princes. Ataroth, Divon, Yaazar, Nimrah, Cheshbon, El-Ale, Sevam, Nebo and Beon, in the land that God struck down before the Israelite community's livestock land, and what we have is livestock. They said, "If you would grant us a favor, let this land be given to us as our permanent property, and do not bring us across the Jordan." Moses said to the descendants of Gad and Reuben, "Why should your brothers go out and fight while you stay here? Why are you trying to discourage the Israelites from crossing over to the land that God has given them? This is the same thing your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. They went as far as Cluster Valley to see the land, but then they discouraged the Israelites from coming to the land that God gave them. God displayed his anger that day and swore, 'None of the men over 20 years old who left Egypt will see the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, since they did not follow me wholeheartedly. The only exception shall be Caleb son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite and Joshua son of Nun, because they followed God wholeheartedly. God displayed anger against Israel and he made them wander 40 years in the desert until the generation that had done evil in God's eyes had died out. Now you are trying to take your father's places as a band of sinners and bring yet more of God's wrath against Israel. You will dissuade them from following him, and he will once again leave us in the desert. Then you will have destroyed this nation completely. The Reubenites and Gadites approached Moses and said, "We will build enclosures for our sheep here and cities for our children. But we will then arm ourselves and go as an advance guard before the other Israelites, fighting until we have brought them to their homeland. Because of the area's inhabitants, our children will remain in fortified cities. But we ourselves will not return home until every Israelite has taken possession of his hereditary property. We, however, will not take possession with them on the far side of the Jordan, since our inheritance shall come to us on the Jordan's eastern bank." Moses said to them, "If you do that and go forth as a special force ahead of your brothers, your petition will be granted. Your entire special force must cross the Jordan before God and fight until he has driven his enemies before him. When the land is then conquered before God, you may return home and you will be free of any obligation before God and Israel. This land will then be yours as your permanent property before God. But if you do not do that, you will have sinned to God, and you must realize that your sin will be your undoing. Now build yourself cities for your children and folds for your sheep, but keep your promise." The descendants of Gad and Reuben said to Moses, "We will do as you have ordered. Our children, wives, property, and livestock will remain here in the cities of Gilead. Meanwhile, all our special forces shall cross over for battle before God as you have said." Moses then gave instructions to Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the paternal heads of the Israelite tribes. Moses said to them, "If the entire special force of the Gadites and Reubenites crosses the Jordan to fight with you, then when the land is conquered, you shall give them the Gilead area as their permanent property. But if they do not go as a special force before you, then they shall have their property alongside you in the land of Canaan." The descendants of Gad and Reuben responded, "We will do whatever God has told us. We will cross over as a special force to the land of Canaan, and we shall then have our permanent hereditary property on this side of the Jordan." To the descendants of Gad and Reuben, and to half the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, Moses then gave the kingdom of Sichon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of the Bashan. He gave them the land along with the cities along its surrounding borders. The descendants of Gad built up Davon, Ataroth, Aroer, Athroth, Shofan, Yazer, Yagbeha, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran. These were built into fortress cities and enclosures for flocks. The descendants of Reuben built up Cheshbon, Ilale, Kiriathaim, Nebo, Baal Meon. These names had been changed, and Sivma. They gave these cities the names that they had when they were built. The sons of Machir, son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and captured it, expelling the Amorites who were there. Moses gave the Gilead to Machir, son of Manasseh, and he lived there. Yair, a grandson of Manasseh, went and conquered the villages in this district, and he named them Yair's villages, Chavoth Yair. Noach went and captured Kenneth and its surrounding towns, and he gave the area his own name, Noach. Mas'eh. These are the journeys of the Israelites who had left Egypt in organized groups under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded their stops along the way at God's command. These were their stops along the way. The Israelites left Ramses on the 15th of the first month. On the day after the Passover sacrifice, the Israelites left triumphantly before the eyes of the Egyptians. Egypt was still burying all their firstborn who had been killed by God, and God had destroyed their idols. The Israelites left Ramses and camped in Succoth. They left Succoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the desert. They left Etham and returned to Freedom Valley facing Lord of the North, camping near Tower. They left Freedom Valley and crossed the Red Sea toward the desert. They then traveled for 3 days in the Etham desert and camped in Mara. They left Mara and came to Elim. In Elim there were 12 water springs and 70 palms, and they camped there They left Elim and camped near the Red Sea. They left the Red Sea and camped in the Sin Desert. They left the Sin Desert and camped in Dovka. They left Dovka and camped in Alush. They left Alush and camped in Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They left Rephidim and camped in the Sinai Desert. They left the Sinai Desert and camped in Graves of Craving. They left Graves of Craving and camped in Chazaroth. They left Chazaroth and camped in Rithma. They left Rithma and camped in Rimmon Peretz. They left Rimmon Peretz and camped in Libnah. They left Libnah and camped in Risa. They left Risa and camped in Kehilatath. They left Kehilatath and camped at Mount Shephar. They left Mount Shephar and camped in Charada. They left Charada and camped in Makheloth. They left Makheloth and camped in Tachhath. They left Tachhath and camped in Terak. They left Terak and camped in Mitka. They left Mitka and camped in Chashmona. They left Chashmona and camped in Mosiroth. They left Mosiroth and camped in Bnei Yakan. They left Bnei Yakin and camped in Chor Haggidgad. They left Chor Haggidgad and camped in Yatwata. They left Yatwata and camped in Abrona. They left Abrona and camped in Etzion Gever. They left Etzion Gever and camped in Kadesh in the Zin Desert. They left Kadesh and camped at Hor Mountain at the edge of the land of Edom. Aaron the priest climbed Hor Mountain at God's command, and he died there on the first day of the 5th month. In the 40th year of the Israelites' exodus from Egypt, when he died on Hor Mountain, Aaron was 123 years old. The Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev in the land of Canaan, heard that the Israelites had arrived. They left Hor Mountain and camped in Zalmona. They left Zalmona and camped in Punon. They left Punon and camped in Ovod. They left Ovod and camped in the desolate passes on Moab's borders. They left the passes and camped in Davon Gad. They left Davon Gad and camped in Almon Divla Thayama. They left Almon Divla Thayama and camped in the Avarim mountains in front of Nebo. They left the Avarim mountains and camped in the west plains of Moab on the Jericho Jordan. They left camped along the Jordan from Beth Hayeshimoth to Aval Shittim on the west plains of Moab. God spoke to Moses in the west plains of Moab on the Jericho Jordan, telling him to speak to the Israelites and say to them, "When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you must drive out the land's inhabitants ahead of you. You must destroy all their carved stones and demolish all their cast metal idols and high altars. Clear out the land and live in it, since it is to you that I am giving the land to occupy. It is by a lottery system that you shall distribute the land to your families. To a large family give a large portion, to a smaller one give a smaller portion. Distribute the land to the paternal tribes, and each one shall have what the lottery system dictates. If you do not drive out the land's inhabitants before you, those who remain shall be barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides, causing your troubles in the land that you settle. I will then do to you what I originally planned to do to them." God spoke to Moses, telling him to give the Israelites instructions and say to them, "When you come to the land of Canaan, this is the land within the borders of the land of Canaan that shall be your hereditary territory. You southern sector shall begin in the Zin desert alongside Edom. The southern border to the east shall be the edge of the Dead Sea. The border shall then turn to pass to the south of Akrabim steps. It shall then pass toward Zin with its southernmost point at Kadesh Barnea, and then extend to Chazar Adar and reach as far as Azmon. From Azmon the border shall turn north and follow the Egyptian Wadi, which shall be its far boundary to the west. The western boundary shall be the Mediterranean Sea and its shores. This shall be your western border. This shall be your northern boundary. From the Mediterranean Sea, draw a line to Hor Mountain. From the Hor Mountain, draw a line along the Chamath highway, so that the extreme edge of the boundary is toward Zedad. The border shall then extend through Ziphron with its extreme end at Chazar Ainan. This shall be your northern border. For your eastern boundary, you shall draw a line from Chazar Ainan to Shepham. The boundary shall then run southward from Shepham to Rivala to the east of Ain. Continuing to the south, the boundary shall run along the eastern shore of the Kinneret Sea. The boundary shall then continue south along the Jordan, continuing until the Dead Sea. All these shall be your boundaries on all sides. Moses gave the Israelites the following instructions. This is the land that God commanded you to give to 9 tribes and a half tribe, and which you must distribute as hereditary property through a lottery system. However, the tribe of the Reubenite descendants, the Gadite descendants, and all the tribe of Manasseh have already taken their hereditary property. These 2.5 tribes have already taken their hereditary property across the Jordan from Jericho to the east. God spoke to Moses saying, These are the names of the men who shall parcel out the land. First, there shall be Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun. You shall also appoint one leader from each tribe to help parcel out the land. These are the names of the men. For the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Jephunneh. For the tribe of Simeon's descendants, Shemuel son of Ammihud. For the tribe of Benjamin, Eliad son of Kislon. For the tribe of Dan's descendants, the leader is Buki son of Yagli. Among Joseph's sons, for the tribe of Manasseh's descendants, the leader is Chaniel son of Ephod. For the tribe of Ephraim's descendants, the leader is Kemuel son of Shiftan. For the tribe of Zebulun's descendants, the leader is Elizaphan son of Parnak. For the tribe of Issachar's descendants, the leader is Paltiel son of Azan. For the tribe of Asher's descendants, the leader is Achihud son of Shelomi. For the tribe of Naphtali's descendants, the leader is Pedah son of Ammihud. These are the men whom God commanded to distribute to the Israelites their hereditary property in the land of Canaan. God spoke to Moses in the west plains of Moab on the Jericho Jordan, saying, Give orders to the Israelites and have them give the Levites residential cities from their hereditary holdings. Also provide the Levite suburbs around the cities. The cities shall be their residence, while the suburbs shall be for their animals, property, and other amenities. The suburbs that you shall give the Levites shall extend outward 1,000 cubits from the city wall. You shall measure off outside the city 2,000 cubits on the eastern side, 2,000 cubits on the southern side, 2,000 cubits on the western side, and 2,000 cubits on the northern side. This shall constitute the city's suburbs, with the city in the exact center. Along with the cities that you shall give to the Levites shall be the 6 refugee cities, which you shall provide as places to which a murderer can flee. Besides these 6, you shall provide an additional 42 cities. Therefore, the total number of cities that you shall give the Levites shall be 48 cities along with their suburbs. These cities shall be given from the holdings of the Israelites, more from a larger holding and fewer from a smaller one. Each tribe shall therefore give the Levite cities in proportion to the hereditary property that it has been given. God spoke to Moses, telling him to speak to the Israelites and say to them, Now that you are crossing the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you must designate towns which shall serve you as refugee cities to which a murderer who killed a person accidentally can flee. These cities shall serve you as a refugee from the avenger, so that a murderer not die until he can stand trial before the courts. The towns that you provide for yourselves shall be 6 cities in all. As refugee cities, you shall provide 3 towns on this side of the Jordan and 3 in the land of Canaan. These cities shall be a place of refuge for both proselytes and residents among the Israelites, so that anyone who accidentally kills a person shall be able to escape there. Of course, if one strikes his victim purposely with an iron weapon, killing him, then he is a murderer, and he must be put to death for murder. Similarly, if he strikes with a hand-held stone that can be a deadly weapon, and the victim dies, he is a murderer and must be put to death for murder. Likewise, if he strikes with a deadly wooden hand weapon and the victim dies, he is a murderer and must be put to death for murder. In such cases, after the trial, the blood avenger shall kill the murderer, and he can kill him wherever he finds him. The same law applies if the killer pushes down his victim or throws something down on him with hatred, causing the victim to die. This is also true. If he maliciously strikes him with his hand, causing the victim to die, the person dealing the blow is a murderer and he must be put to death. Once he has been tried, the blood avenger shall kill him wherever he finds him. This is not true. However, if the killer pushes down his victim accidentally and without malice, or throws any object at him without planning to kill him, even if it is a stone that can kill, if he did not see the victim and it killed him by falling on him, he is not a murderer, since he was not an enemy and did not bear his victim any malice. In such cases, the court shall follow these laws and judge between the killer and the blood avenger. The court shall protect the accidental murderer from the blood avenger and return him to the refugee city to which he fled. The killer must live there until the death of the high priest anointed with the sacred oil. If the killer goes outside the boundaries of the refugee city to which he fled and the blood avenger finds him outside the borders of his refugee city, then if the blood avenger puts the killer to death, it is not an act of murder. The killer is thus obligated to live in his refugee city until the high priest dies. After the high priest dies, the killer may return to his hereditary land. These shall be the rules of law for you for all generations, no matter where you may live. If anyone kills a human being, the murderer shall be put to death on the basis of eyewitness testimony. However, a single eyewitness may not testify against a person where the death penalty is involved. Do not take ransom for the life of a murderer who is under the death penalty, since he must be put to death. Similarly, if one has fled to his refugee city, do not take ransom to allow him to return and live in the land before the high priest dies. Do not pollute the land in which you live. It is blood that pollutes the land. When blood is shed in the land, it cannot be atoned for except through the blood of the person who shed it. You must not defile the land upon which you live and in which I dwell, since I, God, dwell among the Israelites. The paternal leaders of the family of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, which was one of the families from Joseph's sons, came forth and spoke before Moses and the leaders who were the paternal heads of the Israelites. They said, God has commanded you to give the land to the Israelites as hereditary property through a lottery system. You have also been commanded by God to give the hereditary property of Zelophehad, our brother, to his daughters. But if they marry a member of another Israelite tribe, then the hereditary property coming to us from our fathers will be diminished. Since it will be added to the tribe into which they marry, our hereditary property from the lottery system will thus be diminished. Even if the Israelites have the Jubilee, the hereditary property will be added to the property of the tribe into which they marry, and it will be subtracted from the property of our father's tribe. Moses gave the Israelites instruction at God's command, saying, the tribe of Joseph's descendants have a just claim. This is the word that God has commanded regarding Zelophehad's daughters. You may marry anyone you wish as long as you marry within your father's tribe. The hereditary property of the Israelites will thus not be transferred from one tribe to another, and each person among the Israelites will remain attached to the hereditary property of his father's tribe. Thus every girl who inherits property among the Israelite tribes shall marry a member of her father's tribe. Each Israelite will then inherit his father's hereditary property, and the hereditary property will not be transferred from one tribe to another. Each of the Israelite tribes will then remain attached to its hereditary property. Zelophehad's daughters did exactly as God had commanded Moses. Machlah, Tirzah, Chagla, Milcah and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, married their cousins. They thus married into the families of Manasseh son of Joseph, and their hereditary property remained with their father's family. These are the commandments and laws that God instructed the Israelites through Moses in the west plains of Moab on the Jericho Jordan.